This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Order the sixth meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. This meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission will be conducted in person and remotely online to the greatest extent possible. Should an interruption occur in which the online meeting ends abruptly, both the in-person and online meeting will not be restarted. All agenda items will be automatically continued to the next scheduled meeting.
Yeah, so if I can just kind of go over some housekeeping items before we get started. Folks who are, like I said, the next meeting, if there's any issues, technically, we'll have to cancel the meeting. Everything will be continued to the next meeting, which is on May 20th. And then for folks who are joining us online, thank you for coming. You'll notice that you're muted and you can't share your screen or do anything like that yet. If you'd like to make a comment when the time happens and the chair allows for that, you can use the raise hand function to indicate to us that you'd like to do so. That button is at the bottom of your screen, just to the left of the red end calls button. So please click that if you want to make a comment. You can also use the chat function, but the chat isn't private. It is going to generate into a transcript at the end. So we ask that you actually make your comments verbally if possible. So just be aware of that. And then everyone will be allowed 5 minutes per comment. And folks who are in person, you can let us know you want to make a comment after the chair opens the floor for such. And then, yeah, take 5 minutes. If you, once the 5 minutes are up, you want to make another comment, just get back in line. We just want to make sure everyone gets a chance. If you don't want to make a comment verbally, you can send in a written comment. You can email it to me. I'd be happy to receive that. And then folks online, same story. Once we open the floor to you, we'll call you by name. And if you've raised your hand, give you 5 minutes. And once your 5 minutes are up, you can get back in line, raise your hand again if you've got more you want to say. Otherwise, of course, you can submit a written comment to me at any time. And that is all for me. We're ready to carry on.
Public concerns, non-agenda items. I assume some are all here for.
Yeah, is anybody here who's not for an item that's on the agenda? Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm here for the dump on Loudville Road to see what the action's going to be taken, if any, on the dump before it goes in the river.
Okay.
And which is it the covered landfill you're talking about?
Well, it's only because natural leaves and pine needles that covered it, but it was never really covered.
What's the address it's at? Do you know?
282 is the property.
I see, yes.
Where they're putting in 14 units right now.
If it's okay with the commission.
Sure.
So the commission reviewed that project. There's a project proposed at that property, a housing development.
It's happening again.
Right, it's underway. They came to the commission to ask, or rather, I received the building permit application for the project to see if it was within any jurisdictional spaces of the Conservation Commission. And I reviewed what they submitted as well as presented it to the commission. The commission determined that the project does not propose impacts to areas that are jurisdictional of the Conservation Commission. So they can't legally require them to get a permit with the Conservation Commission to go forward. They didn't need to get that permit, if that makes sense, because they weren't in an area that we have any jurisdiction over. Yeah,
regardless of them permits, you just turn your back and just leave it.
So
not really do anything about it.
There is erosion that has been happening there.
15 feet away.
It's a natural erosion. It hasn't been caused by construction that the commission would issue an enforcement order for. So I did consult DEP about that, the Department of Environmental Protection, who is the one that we kind of like answer to. And when we issue an enforcement order, it goes to them. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Because it's natural erosion and not the result of construction, the commission did not feel they were empowered to issue an enforcement order related to that.
Yeah, I've actually seen it.
Okay.
I've been living there for 36 years and I actually see the development of the erosion.
Yeah.
And, but the dump is eventually going to end up in the river and it seems like there's nobody really stepping forward to do anything about it.
Is this also?
And this is like 2 dump truck loads of bottles, And somebody is actually digging down there right now. In that dump.
So is the dump, because we did a site visit too, because there would seem like there was historical dump, unfortunately, like a really old, like rusted vehicle even, and like
Yeah,
most of it is
Model T Ford.
embedded. Yeah, exactly. Most of it's embedded. It's very old, which unfortunately is not an uncommon situation in places in Easthampton. But because of that aged quality, I suppose the commission also didn't feel like they had a way to pursue enforcement related to that. As I know that might not be the answer that you want to hear, but the reason is because that may have been done before the Wetlands Protection Act existed. We don't have a mechanism to prove how that happened,
So-
or when it happened.
So you just let all this debris go down into the river and then act on it?
Is there any new dump, like recently, that you think has occurred there? You said there's someone doing
No,
work.
this is an old farm dump, probably from the 40s, 50s. But the thing is that, there's a lot of debris there. I mean, it's not just a little dump, and the debris field is pretty wide.
Right.
And you've seen the bank, it's straight down 100 feet.
Yeah.
And, it's not coming up.
Of
It's
course,
only
yeah.
gonna go down into the river.
It's just that based off my discussions with DEP and then what I presented to the commission, it's not clear that we have a clear legal path to pursue that enforcement, to have that work be completed. That's what we have to operate within what we're legally allowed to do.
And that's why I came, just to see if there is anybody
I appreciate that.
that I could, contact. Because, I'll contact anybody that is willing to do something about this. Because it will be into the river. You know.
Did you say someone, I mean, I think last time we looked at it, any digging that was happening on the construction site was pretty far away from the dump. Did you say that you thought people that were digging near that?
Yeah, I didn't know if you were checking to see if there was any, or later date, debris that you could find. I didn't know if you were digging or,
No, oh, no. I have not been
But-
out there. We've not done any work.
and it's somebody looking for old bottles.
Oh, I
It's
see.
digging down there.
Do you think they were using like
And-
heavy machinery?
No,
Okay, But
just,
still,
it looks like hand.
But disturbing the soil where
Yeah.
erosion's
That's
occurring.
disturbing. Yeah, you can see all the bottles up on top.
Sure.
And,
I mean, part of the problem too is that if somebody went in there to remove it all, it would actually destabilize the slope even more, and then there'd be even faster erosion and.
yeah, well, being as close to erosion as it is, it's only a little matter of time. I mean, it's not gonna take long, especially now that the stormwater management area is gonna be right in that vicinity of the, washout, the erosion. And not only that, they have for a 100-year, storm, the trench is gonna go right toward the embankment.
Okay.
so based
And-
off, oh, no, go ahead, sorry.
And, no, and you know that, at 294, I think, or
298,
298.
298,
Yeah.
they had the whole bank
Sure.
just went poof,
absolutely.
big trees and all.
Sure.
And, I can see this same thing happening. Once you saturate the ground, the water has got so much force, and I've seen it with the erosion in the back. Whenever we get 2 to 3 inch rain, you'll see rocks coming right out of that erosion.
Okay.
Because there's sand, there's gravel, and then there's red clay mixed with sand. And once it hits the clay, the water hits that clay, it just looks for a place to jet out. And I've seen it for years.
So what I can at least explain in this moment, which, well, one thing, if it's okay with the commission, I can go out there and take a look, just to see what that person was doing and see
Yeah,
what
Sure.
I can find out about that. Certainly, I can do an investigation. So cool, I'll plan to do that.
But-
And then,
one other thing
Yes.
about the property at 298. Right now, they had some retention plastic to hold the bank.
I think they did some kind of soil lifts or something
yeah,
like
like
that.
these metal gabions, so.
Yeah, well, there's plastic from that area for a couple hundred feet all along the north side of the bank. It's coming from that area. And it's on the bank right now of the river.
Oh, I see. So that's a separate issue.
Yeah, separated, yeah. Because I'm down the river all the time. I love the area.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, if you want to put together a site visit, and we can try to.
But anytime you want to, I would definitely go down to the river with you and show you.
I appreciate that.
There's other things. I don't know if the community is interested, but there's a boundary marker, number 65, geological marker. It's granite post.
Okay.
And it's for Easthampton, Southampton. And right now, I'm pretty much the only one that knows where it is.
Mm-hmm.
And if someday you would like to see that, it's really something to see, because whoever was the engraver, he didn't know how to do an S. So the Southampton is backwards S.
Thank you for that. The only other thing I can add is that the way the stormwater system was designed, and as I understand it was approved by the planning board, because it didn't need to go to the Conservation Commission. All of the construction was related to the stormwater, and everything else is at least 200 feet away from that bank, which was the requirement for the Conservation Commission, and that they had to get what's known as a stormwater permit for the city as well for that the very rough explanation of generally what is required for that is to prove that it will not result in an increase in volume of stormwater coming off of the site, as well as it can't result in a decrease of the quality of stormwater coming off. And they had to go through a process to prove that that was the case. Now, of course, yeah, I'm happy to go out there and take a look at it again. And I voiced the same concerns to them to make sure that they got the data that they needed to show that it wouldn't cause future erosion. That's something that was critical for that process. So I appreciate you voicing that again.
And I don't know who would monitor that.
Right. They have, I don't know what the process is for the planning board during construction. That you'd have to ask them, honestly. Yeah.
Because right now they just clear cut everything.
Right.
So we have a big, huge, it's bigger than the baseball field back there.
Yeah.
And there's gonna be a lot of water in the ground right there now.
Mm-hmm.
That's not gonna get absorbed by roots or trees. It's gonna be an issue.
Well, any future
There's no
concerns,
doubt.
I appreciate that. And any future concerns, you can always reach out to me. I'm happy to take in more
I
information.
appreciate the fact that you didn't want to listen to me.
Oh. Part of
Well,
it.
let's see if you can put together a site visit, and we can go out there and just have a better understanding of what's going on.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Whether we have jurisdiction or not, we can still go there and look at it.
yeah, because it'd be a shame to see all this trash go into the river.
That's right.
But it's on private land, right? It's
Yeah,
not city land,
I believe the developer owns the land now. So,
all the way down to the river.
That's fine.
yes, and this trash goes all the way down to the river. I've been down at the bottom into the river, and there is trash at the bottom also. So it is going into the river already.
Yeah. So the legal avenue, unfortunately, that's what we need to figure out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. That's what it is.
It's always the issue.
Any other non-agenda items? Anyone's here for?
Folks online, raise your hand if you have a non-agenda item concern. It's in the raise hand function to the left of the end.
I appreciate it. Listening up.
All right, have a good night.
Did you share your contact info with her?
What's that?
You put your name on the
Yep.
sign-in sheet, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Public hearing meetings are none. The first public meeting is a request for determination of applicability filed by Jeffrey Allen Clark for invasive vegetation removal at 420 East Street, map 149, lot 52.
Yes. Mr. Clark, I can see you're here virtually. You can unmute yourself, and if you want to, you can turn on your camera, but you don't have to. Hold on. Okay, I don't know, Alan, if you want to give a brief description to the commission of what you're trying to do here, and I can share documents. I have the documents here for the commission to review. I'll share them on the screen here in a second.
All right. Well, what I'm hoping to do is to remove some of the invasive vines and shrubs along the stream and replace them with native shrubs and as also native perennials where appropriate. So I'm not planning on removing any native perennials or any native shrubs. But I'm just hoping to increase the quality of the habitat along the stream on the southern edge of my property.
Okay, so yeah, if it's all right, Alan, can I add to that?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So what I'm showing here is just a general sketch of where he'd like to do this vegetation removal. So this requires a permit with the Conservation Commission because within the proximity of that stream, basically that's the blue line there, is 100 feet stretching out from that is 100 buffer zone. So to do that work, even if it's eventually a good thing, which is removing invasive species, that's considered a form of alteration that needs a permit to pursue.
Is that a perennial or intermittent stream?
It's an intermittent stream and it's coming off of Mount Tom, which a lot of the streams off of Mount Tom, like we just learned with some of our recent permits, aren't jurisdictional of the commission because of a weird factor of the Wetland Protection Act. If they don't have a headwaters of a bordering vegetated wetland or a pond or something, they're not jurisdictional. But in this instance, it is, and I can share pictures of this, but looking up from this stream, there is a little pond up there that then feeds into this. So that establishes the headwaters, meaning the rest of it is jurisdictional. So the parameter for being a perennial stream, there's a bunch of different criteria, but it's such a small space. I know that it doesn't meet that criteria based off of USGS stream stats. As I understand it, it seems like we're confident that it's an intermittent stream, which means it only has 100 foot buffer zone associated with it.
But there's no soil disturbance.
Well, yeah. So, Alan, it's from what I understand, you're not planning to do soil disturbance, no root removal, but rather to cut the vegetation there. And maybe the next thing that would be most helpful is for you to share those site visit pictures. So, because it is a substantial amount of vegetation that would be removed and then replaced with plantings. So, you'll bear with me. I'll go back to that now.
So Alan, you would just be cutting them or would there be insecticide?
So,
Herbicide?
Basically anything that's an inch or larger will be cut at the ground to avoid disturbing the soil. I mean, there's garlic, mustard, and, other perennials that I'll pull up by hand. But the shrubs and the vines, I'll be cutting at the ground. Because there's 4 autumn olives, there's one of the invasive honeysuckle, there is forsythia and a couple of rose bushes, and then a row of lilacs. And those are what I would be, those are the autumn olives and the forsythia right there. So those would be cut to the ground, and then I would take a 20% solution of biophosphate and sponge it on the stump. To try to kill the roots without having to remove them.
Okay, and what I can do, just writing that down, for minutes. But let me go through these pictures here because they kind of jump around between me, like in the middle of the stream, to me, like looking at that front area. So you can see the stream in the center of that image. It's all the area to the right and forward that he wants to do the vegetation there. So you can see some of the forsythia there. Forsythia.
Is forsythia invasive?
I think it's not native. Oh, is it invasive as well? It's just not native.
It's a non-native and mildly invasive.
It's native to Asia.
The largest stump is this apple tree here, but you said it seems like it's on its last legs. But you didn't anticipate cutting it out of part of this permit, were you? Or-
I'm planning to leave it up for a little bit. The birds absolutely love it. Right now I'm watching orioles as we talk in the apple tree, but it's more than half dead and parts have fallen off since I moved here in August. So eventually it will need to come down.
I guess maybe that's a question is, do you want to include that in this permit? Because this
Yes,
permit was
yes.
good for 3 years. Okay.
Yes, please. I'm sorry, I didn't misunderstood there.
And does the herbicide that you would be applying require a license, and are you licensed to do it?
No, it's it's over the counter. It's the mild version, the 20% solution of Roundup, which I deplore, but is a short-lived, and if applied in low concentrations directly on the stumps, it seems to be as effective as you can get without pulling up the roots.
I'm just catching up with my notes here. Okay, so I'm gonna keep carrying on. So I think one of the important things to note is that it does want to clear up to the edge of the stream there. You can see where the edge of the stream is kind of in the back of this. You can, oh, if you can see my cursor right here, that's the stream. In some areas it's denser than others, so. That's that apple tree again, kind of panning back. And this is where it gets quite thick. Panning back again, that's kind of a broad view of the lawn. Everything it's to the right, where it gets more brambly, that the work would happen. Okay, now we're turning around. Turned a little too quick there, but it's this area turning to the right. See this area, and then there's a line of trees that juts into the yard here. As you can see, that's the extent of that line. Those are some of the plantings he's already obtained. Again, looking back at that main area. Little detail there. It's also on the other side of the stream, but that's another property. You wouldn't be doing work there. This is the other side of that row of trees that juts out in the yard. And then we're going to be clearing to the right, all the way to the road, to the roadway. There's the stream down here. This is where the stream enters the culvert that goes underneath the road. Back again at some of the larger shrubs that would be removed.
And actually those shrubs right there, there's a meadowsweet and an azalea, and I will be leaving those just because they're pretty.
These are here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you'll be nowhere near the skunk cap.
No, and there's trout lily as you get closer to the road at that culvert you just saw, which I'm really excited about. And there was even a few blooming this spring of the yellow trout lily. So I am a conservation biologist by profession, and I'm really excited to try to improve the quality of the streamside habitat as much as I can. So my intention is to leave everything that is native. That's my hope.
Okay, just kind of cycling through again. This is like looking into the culvert where it goes in. You can see there's some deterioration there, but wouldn't be involved in this project doing any restoration like that. This is just a part where it's eroding above that area. But that might be within the city right of way, be a separate area. Certainly there's no vegetation to remove, which is part of the problem. Just got some pictures of that. Okay, this is the headwaters pictures, and that's the rest of the pictures from here. If you want to see them, I'm happy to share them, but we're just proving that there is BBW upstream, making the stream below jurisdictional. No work is proposed up there. So I'm happy to go back to any of the pictures if the commissioners want to see them. I find a good representative shot. But yeah.
You have a list of the plantings that you would
I am, it's also a budget issue, but I've been, scouring sales and But the main ones that I would like to do include spice bush, red osier dogwood, some of the native willow, some of the water loving, maybe some winterberry. But I'm looking for, and some sumac, the staghorn sumac, because it's bright and sunny. And I'm not, and also it'll help with the slope. But I'm looking for a mix of mostly native shrubs.
Concerns? Are there any conditions that we want to issue for this? So I'm thinking that it would be a negative determination number 3 that we're going to issue with. We can apply conditions.
Not altering area subject to station. Subject to the following conditions.
Yeah, so like, for example, in the past, what the commission has typically required is a site visit with me to make sure that the erosion controls are in place, but this project doesn't really need erosion controls because
Right.
it isn't gonna be ground
Yeah,
disturbance.
if he's only cutting things flush to the surface and leaving the roots in most cases, there really isn't any disturbance.
The only thing I could think, and again, it's up to you guys, but maybe just a condition to let me know, because I'll probably get people asking like, oh, what's happening? So I can I'll be prepared to talk to folks about it if they do have questions in public, but otherwise I can't really think of any other conditions. I'll write it such that it cites the herbicide that he described here as being used, and there shouldn't be any changes there.
Lathrop did all that invasive removal. Do we have any conditions that are similar?
That one's different because it was an order of conditions. It was a much larger undertaking. We included like a lot larger. I think they were actually pulling plants as well, so there might have been slightly some ground disturbance, but I don't think they had any controls that were required either.
Yeah.
But it's just, the reason I went that way is just, it's such a long permit, a big project.
Yeah.
When you use order conditions, it allows it to be extended if the commission should so choose into the future. It also allows us to amend it, make changes, but the RDA is set in stone. It's one and done. Can't change it, can't get it extended. You have to come back for another one.
I think the only condition might be let us know if it works so that
There
we
you go.
can have a precedent for removing invasives in other places.
There's a good amount of poison ivy,
I'm sure.
just saying. I mean, can I ask a question? Sorry.
Yeah, actually, hold on. If the commission's ready to open up for public comment, we can do that.
Sure, we can do that.
Thanks. Sorry, because I feel like I've been, and some of my neighbors might attest to the minute I moved into the house on what, and I'm from Colorado, very nice places, and and there's a lot of people there that are very nice, and apparently haven't. And I had to go and I had my baby, like parents were there, like okay. The name before we had our child, a neighbor, it was like I don't know, 2001 or 2, and what was my name? A neighbor. The man came running out of his house and was like, "Watch out for those trees!" Ha ha ha, and ran back to his house. And I married a guy from Morocco, from another country, so it's like trusting, whatever issues you have with the house you have to deal with. But so it's been like I've joked that I should have a paycheck in my car. I've been or in my mailbox because I haven't been able to get back to work in Northampton that I've done just because there's a lot of issues, and keeping people safe, not just your own family, but clearly it affects. So they took one part down, and I'm sure it was a stressful job, George.
Sorry, since I know that you came in late, I just was wondering if you, I'm Sarah.
Okay, sorry to be late.
I was just wondering if you were talking about this particular
know that.
property.
No.
That's all.
We're not quite place yet.
Sorry. So,
Oh, yeah, sorry. Oh, no, it's okay. Yeah.
No, you're right. I don't know that. I
Okay.
assume I don't know where that is. What street is that?
This is 420 East Street.
420 East Street. Okay.
So we're doing invasive species removal.
Oh, gotcha.
We're gonna do Emerald Place next,
Great.
and there'll be a
Sorry.
part. No, it's okay.
I won't.
It's fine. If you have comments about this, you're welcome to make them. But
No, I don't. I haven't gotten out that far.
okay.
I will actually.
We want to hear from you when we get to that.
Yeah, sorry.
And we'll open it up for public comment when that time comes. Yeah.
That's someone's property? Or just deciding on.
Exactly.
Or
Different
that's-
purpose.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Relationship picture.
Deb has a comment.
So what about the disposal of this?
Okay.
Yeah, how will you,
Yeah, so the question is, how will I dispose of the brush?
The invasives. That you
I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
didn't
thanks.
fully hear the question.
Yeah, what's your plan with the invasive material that you do cut? Where will you dispose of it?
Right. Well, at this point, I am planning to create a wildlife friendly brush pile. And because I'm cutting things mostly before anything flowers, and certainly before anything seeds,
Sure.
the problem would be if like bittersweet would reroot. The vegetation would make a nice pile in the very back corner, away from the stream. I'd like to have a brush pile. I mean, I can dispose of it otherwise, but that was kind of my hope. It was to have an actual brush pile made from the remnants of the shrubs that I remove. But if the commission preferred a different approach, I'm happy to consider that.
As long as nothing's gone to seed, that is probably not a real issue, this time of year yet. Even if they go to flower, they're not at seed at this point, so you're probably going to be okay.
Because I certainly don't want a reinfestation.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, well, that could be a condition is that if clearing is before seed, then the pile is fine, but otherwise then it needs to be properly disposed of to prevent spread, whatever method you should so choose. We could do it that way. That could be a condition. But up to you guys.
Would we need a condition on how many times he's gonna attempt to use the herbicide?
Up to you guys.
Well,
Go ahead, Alan.
Yeah, so my expectation, because this is I'll be honest, it's the worst time of the year to do this because plant roots are sending things up. And in the fall, they suck stuff back down. And so these kinds of herbicides tend to be more effective in the fall than in the spring, but they still can be effective. So I may need to brush the stumps again in the fall.
Sure.
But my plan is to just keep basically mowing things and snipping things down. It's not a giant area, and it's doable for me to keep snipping or mowing. But I do expect that I may need to reapply in the fall, but hopefully that would be it. I mean, it should, if this was the fall, one dose should do it. But because it's the spring, I'm not positive that it's going to be fully effective.
And then the permit would be good for 3 years. So it's up to the commission if they want to restrict the number of applications within that period. But otherwise, after 3 years, you'd have to come back for another permit to do more after that period.
Are we putting a condition in or not? We just check.
I don't think, I think we really didn't have any firm condition.
Yeah. My finding.
Well, someone has to make a motion to issue a negative determination number 3.
I make a motion for 420 East Street to issue a negative determination number 3 on this RDF.
So the work describes.
The work described in the request is within the buffer zone as defined in the regulations, but will not alter any area subject to jurisdiction under the act. Therefore, said work does not require the filing of a notice of intent, subject to the following conditions if there were any, but I don't think we're putting.
At this point, it seems.
That's my motion.
Okay, I will second. Okay, roll call. Commissioner August. Commissioner Carr.
Aye.
Commissioner Weeks. Aye. Next.
And now we're just going to take a second to sign it. Alan, what I'll do is I will get that to you by email and I can mail it to you if you'd like. But technically I have 21 days to do that, but it won't take me that long. Like I just need to scan it in and then email it to you and send it to DEP.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, I really appreciate everyone's attention. I'm really excited about doing a little habitat restoration, and thank you for making this process. Cassie's been amazing, and so thank you, everyone.
All right. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Not his house, right? And you guys are helping. And it was all collected. But you're gonna fund. No,
So just briefly.
Yeah.
This is the Conservation Commission. The purpose is for any project that happens in the city that will dredge, fill, or alter an area jurisdictional of the Conservation Commission, which is specific areas related to wetlands, they need to get a permit with us proving that they are meeting the performance standards laid out in the state law, the Wetlands Protection Act. And so that's what we're here to do. That person wanted to do work within a jurisdictional space, so they had to get a permit. And that was the process to do so for that type of permit. But the next part, it's a different type of permit. It's a little bit longer. No problem. Yeah. My name's Cassie Traggart. I'm the conservation agent, and feel free to reach out to me any other time. I'm happy to talk about this. Yeah. No, don't apologize. It's all good.
This.
Thank you. Okay.
Right. I think most people are here for the fucking O'Neill project, right?
My understanding.
Oh, that was.
So a public hearing, notice of intent filed with Fuss and O'Neill on behalf of the city of Easthampton for bank stabilization and stormwater management improvements on Emerald Place. Map City Row 135, lot City Row 242. Request filed on 4/22/24. There is no DEP file number yet.
Just an amendment to that. We did receive the DEP
Okay.
file number.
Okay.
The file number is 151-0329. And that's basically the number that DEP uses to keep track of the project. And so this is the file right here. I know we have someone in attendance here for this. The number is 151-0329. That will be on future agendas. I just didn't get any time to update it.
I put the after conservation, I put that on my computer and just type that in.
There is a special website where you can do it that way. But if you search Conservation Commission on the city website, that's probably an easier way to get there. Yeah, but I'm happy to talk to you about that if you want. Yeah, there's a special way. Yeah, I don't know if you want to try to set up. Once it'll take some time to set it up, I will pull it up here as well on the screen for the folks at home. But just bear with us for a moment, folks. If you want to, that's fine. We can do that.
Let's see, I want to make sure.
I'm gonna pull it on the TV out here, so we'll try to do both. Thank you. Yep, almost there. Thanks for bearing with me.
Yeah. I'm Laura Seth. I'm a water resource engineer with Fuss and O'Neill. And I'm excited to come talk to you guys about this project today. And it's awesome to see so many residents. We've had a lot of community engagement with this project over the last 2 to 3 years. And we've had a lot of engagement out at the site. I actually recognize quite a few faces here because we keep seeing the residents again and again. And I think it's really exciting that the city has such engaged residents for this kind of project. So just kind of a brief overview of preliminary work for this. This is all funded by CDBG grants and then MVP grants. So federal money and also state money that has been doing for the design and now into permitting of these different projects. You all know the name New City. It's kind of off of the map here, but the New City neighborhood is a neighborhood that was originally for factory workers over at the Mill District. And it has over 100-year-old utilities, stormwater, water, sewers, so all kind of in degraded shape. And so previous work had been to develop plans for overall concept of updating the new city neighborhood, and figuring out stormwater and stormwater and also other utilities, on how we're going to deal with everything for the future. So for right now as we reconstruct, but then also for thinking about climate resiliency and into 2050 and 2070, and increased storm events. We all know that, storm events are becoming a little bit flashier and heavier. And so thinking about those storm events as we plan the storm sewers for here.
Trees, yeah. There needs to be a daily, I've been going to.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. We're going to have a comment period at the end. I apologize, but there will be a set time and we absolutely want to hear it.
So that's previous work. And then this year's MVP grant had focused on Emerald Place. So we've decided, the city together have decided that would be the right place to start this project. And so starting at Ferry Street, there is the connection of the multi-use path that exists today along the pond. Currently, people have to cross over Ferry Street, walk along a sidewalk, and then cross back over. A lot of people there's a lot of not just pedestrians, but people using bicycles. And so the first part of the project would be to put in a pedestrian, multi-use path bridge across adjacent to Ferry Street. And that will not be having any permanent impacts to any of the resource areas. There will be temporary impacts to the resource areas along this wall, this portion of the wall right here, during construction, because they'll need to rebuild that wall and make sure it's safe. This part of the wall was rebuilt during the construction of this multi-use path, and so we'll be following similar wall reconstruction. And then moving down Emerald Place, I'm going to go to more zoomed in pictures as I go, but just a brief overview. Leaving this as a 2-lane road up to Lincoln Street. And at this point, we'll be changing it from a 2-lane road to a 1-lane northbound only one-way street. And then replacing all of the stormwater sewer pipes, and then water utilities. There's a gas main in there right now that we'll be replacing. We'll leave it as it is. And then, let's see. Yeah, I think that's kind of like a quick brief overview. Would you like me to walk through the project and kind of talk about the different stormwater features along its way?
Sure.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. There's quite a bit here. So I want to make sure that you guys get a good feel for what's going on. I apologize, but we're on 4 different boards, but it's such a big project that to scale it and be able to really see what's going on.
What sheet is this?
This is sheet LP 101.
Oh, that was CU 101.
Oh,
So those are
sorry.
utility plans,
Okay.
and then I think yeah, there we go. Great. Okay, so we're gonna start in the south and I'm gonna work my way north, if that makes sense. So down here at Clinton Street, this location right here, the commission may be aware of, there's some extreme erosion and a sinkhole that has actually opened up several times throughout the years. Currently, Emerald Place does not have curbs. And so the water from Clinton Street and Emerald Lane rush through here, especially Clinton Street, rush through here in storm events and is creating a sinkhole that has been filled in, has had emergency maintenance done by DPW. And so for the whole project, we are proposing putting in curbs along the way. So it keeps the runoff off of the slope here as much as we can, at least for a 2070 10-year event. That's what we're designing for. Under proposed conditions, this area, there is an existing 12-inch pipe here. And what we're going to be doing is channeling runoff from Clinton Street, Emerald Lane, and then this area in green. These are the storm sewers that are leading to this low point. And we're going to be formalizing this outlet. So instead of just having a 12-inch that runs into the stream, or sorry, not into the stream, but into this gully area, we're going to be creating step pools. So in a more dry condition, your storm sewer would be up here leading into it, and it would have every foot stepped boulders down. And I have different pictures here. This isn't exactly what's going to happen, but I wanted to give you a feel for what it looks like. This is with water running through it. That's why it's kind of got that sediment turbidity. I think what we're going to be actually placing here is something more like this. So there's going to be some big boulders, but we're trying. Something to think about is that this outlet, it's not just Emerald Place. It's a lot of the neighborhood that's coming to this area. As we develop and as the city starts to build out more infrastructure and replace old infrastructure through the new city neighborhood, we will be updating those pipes, and we are preparing this outfall for that volume. Right, so we know that right now runoff is going to be going there, but in the future we're piping, we're creating stubs so that those new storm sewers can be coming in as well. Okay. We'll get to this. It's the soil dale wall. We'll get to that. We've got some slope stability issues once we get to a little further to the north. Another thing to point out here at the south is that we would like to create a trail that runs to the south, not a gravel trail, not just like clearing out brush, and including like a way for neighbors to get to the south and can make that connection.
Sorry, could you say a little, does that trail go through to Everett?
Yes, yes. So this is Everett right here. Like, we'll include that. Yes, so that is the plan. And to have it just semi-formalized, but something that residents can actually get through and walk on.
And you said we wouldn't have gravel, it'd just be vegetation cleared.
Yes. I'm double checking. Trail clearing area. Okay. Also in this area, we're putting in bioretention basins. And I correct myself, because of the steep slopes, we are not going to be able to infiltrate water along these steep slopes. But what we can do is slow the water down. So water will be directed into curb inlets in these two areas. And as we go along, we'll see a few more. And they're very similar to what the city has done on Cherry Street. And so water will be allowed to get in. It will be treated with the plants and bioretention soil that we put into it. It'll have an overflow that will drain back out. That's these green storm sewer lines. They'll drain back out and then into our step pool system.
That's where my house is, right? Yes,
We're at the south. Yep. And
Thank
then
you.
And then moving north, the sidewalk right now is showing as a straight line. That is something that we're working right now with the city. The sidewalk will end up, this is like a 50% design plan. By the time we get to 90, we'll have the sidewalk perfectly set. It won't be disturbing any of the resource areas, but we are going to meander it a little bit more than it's shown right now, because we want to make sure that we save any trees that are along this way. Yeah, I got a thumbs up. I agree. Right. So that's definitely the goal of, and that's actually, we had gone to a community engagement event. You guys were there, and trying to remember when it was. It was earlier this fall or winter. And we kind of gave the residents different plans. And we said, could we do northbound, southbound? And one of the reasons for the one way, and one of the reasons why we chose the northbound, and the residents helped us make that decision, is to save trees along the way. There's some very large specimens out there.
Can I just add, there are a lot of limbs hanging over, though. People are concerned generally, there's a lot.
It's more effective if you wait for the public comment period. I know it's
I've
important.
been right in the front lines for years on.
I
it.
totally understand. I totally understand, and it's important, but I'll just more accurately, it will be more actually captured by me if you wait. And that's the only reason why. It just says I want to make sure I get it for the minutes. So
it's right on that spot.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. So moving north from Emerald Lane. So this is kind of a high point, it's not really a high point, but this will be where we're collecting all of the water from this southern area. So now moving north, we have another bioretention area. And then I'm going to try to suavely fix this. Here we go. So moving to the north, that's that same bioretention area. The green is the storm sewers, and we're draining to right here. There's an existing outfall an existing outfall, and we're going to retain that existing outfall and formalize it with very similar step pool system right here. We're showing us 3. This is still in design. We want to make sure that we get it right. And there's a significant elevation change here. So we want to make sure that we are proposing the right thing. So what we're seeing here, you know, it looks like 3, it may be 2, it may be 5, but we're going to be keeping within this limit of disturbance. We're in the buffer, but not in the wetlands area. Moving north, I'm trying to think if there's anything else down here. So moving north, we're now at Harrison. It's kind of an easy one. And right before we get to Lincoln Street is where the next storm sewer piece is going to be picking up. This is all going to be outletting into the existing 24-inch pipe that's here today. We're going to be upsizing that to a 36-inch pipe. A lot of these storm sewers are going to be upsized to 36 inches from the 18 to 24 inches that they are today. And the reason for that is the 2070 rainfall storms. And thinking about all of the future runoff that's coming. It's not future, it's coming there today, but making sure that we're accounting for 2070 storms from the rest of the neighborhood as it makes its way down Lincoln and Glen Clove Place. Over here there's one more bioretention area, and that's right here on the corner of Glen Clove Place and Emerald. This will lead into our 36-inch outlet. So there will be temporary impacts to bank when we're working in this area while we're doing that. And then the final kind of piece of Emerald Place is there is some soil instability along the roadway. Many of the residents, I'm sure, know there is sidewalk slumping. This is not your neighborhood. I'm sorry. I was trying, it goes with this project because I wanted you to see like what it looks like before and after.
Okay.
But it is not that dissimilar to what's happening at the sidewalk along Emerald Place today. So we've actually had 2 geotechnical engineers that we've been working with to make sure that we get it right. So this is something that there's a steep drop off here. The bank is probably 20 feet below Emerald Place itself, and it's a significant steep slope, maybe 2 to 1. So what our geotechnical engineer has helped us to decide is that we should really be doing these soil nail slope stability installations. So what these are is exactly what they sound like. They're giant nails, maybe 8 to 10 feet long, that drill into the side of the slope. And then it's reinforced with vegetation and this geogrid that goes over it. So this is a picture of this same slope right beforehand. They regraded it, put down the soil nails, drilled them into the soil, and then put on the geomembrane. You can see that they actually have like coir fabric underneath and the plants underneath. And this is what it looks like after the growing season. What's going to be different here, so these pictures aren't necessarily representative of what we're going to see, is that we can cut this fencing. It would add significant cost, but we can cut this fencing to save certain specimen trees that might be already on the slope. So thinking about which trees that we could save, I think the more you cut and the more that we decide that might not be such a great idea for our geogrid. So we'll have to be choosy about that. And I think we'd welcome the commission's input for that, which trees end up saving. And then we would have to cut all of the herbaceous and shrubs that are there today and plant new. So this area has a lot of invasive species, and an invasive management plan would be part of this. And then planting with herbaceous plants, shrubs, and new trees as well. This geogrid can be cut to allow for those plantings, and then they grow through it, and then their roots are helping to stabilize the soil underneath. The soil here is fill. It's a lot of fill from when the neighborhood was built, and it doesn't have it's not a high quality. So the soil nails are going to help stabilize that soil, and then the plants will be doing the same job. So I'm going to leave this here. So thinking from Ferry Street, working our way to our outlet, we'll have the soil nail to this area here that's kind of in yellow. It's hard to see. I apologize. So that'll be the soil nail wall. Right now, during these 50% design plans, our geotech engineer had started with saying, okay, we're going to go all the way down to the bank. And then after looking at the soils, he came out and did another soil investigation and took more information, more field analysis, and is now proposing that we only go down approximately 12 feet from the road. So it's very hard to tell even from me, so I can't imagine that you're feeling much better about that, but it's only half this area. I think that we should leave the limits of disturbance, and you should be thinking about this project as if that may be a potential possibility. Once the contractors are out there in the field, there might be a reason to continue the soil nail wall down, and I want to make sure that we encapsulate that. But the intent is to only have it go the 12 feet. So this is the soil nail wall up to Ferry Street. And then the area here around the outlet will be vegetated geoliths, very similar to what the city did at Cherry Street. That's a lot. All right, and then I'll just finish up because it's almost done, and then you guys can ask all of the questions. So here's the nail wall again, and then we move up to Ferry and Emerald. We're proposing a mini parklet, we're calling it, and so kind of a seating area, overlook out onto the pond, and then this is the yellow is the new pedestrian multi-use path across from Emerald onto the multi-use path that's there right now.
Okay.
And then this stone wall is in pretty poor shape. And so I think I had mentioned that earlier, that replacing that stone wall will be part of this. And it looks like Diane from the city has a question.
Hold on a second, Diane, let me make you host. Diane is the city engineer. So she's part of the project. It's not a public comment. Diane, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Yep. I just wanted to mention also with the soil nailing, my understanding, and Laura, feel free to jump in. The nice thing about the soil nailing and that is all the equipment would be on the road. They would not have to go down there, and it would all be done from the roadway surface or right on the shoulder.
Yes, that's correct, Diane. And actually, that's a really big deal here. Rather than having a barge or any sort of construction coming from the pond itself and working up, we're going to be up at the road and working down.
Yep, nice.
Thanks for mentioning that, Diane. That's good.
Can I answer?
No, so I know.
Just
So
for
the
that
process,
spot.
the process
It's
is gonna,
now
the process,
there.
the process is gonna be that the commission asks their questions, which can take some time, and then we'll open it up to you.
So I have my safety.
Everyone will get a turn. So you can go, you've got the commissioners, you go first.
It's like a pressure cooker. Doing pretty well.
Lots of questions. Okay, let's go.
This 2070 10-year event you've referenced several times. Can you say a little bit more about what that means?
I can. So typically, when we're designing storm sewers, so pipes in the ground, handling stormwater, catch basins, manholes, we're thinking about a 10-year storm is kind of like the biggest that you would design for. And so with MVP projects, It's always thinking about climate resiliency and forward thinking and thinking about the future. You type your project and the price of your project and the how important of a piece of property it is. So for this, we have a connector road that's pretty important. You type those into RMAT, which is Resilience Massachusetts Action Tool. And then that spits out a year and well, it's a year and a year. So the 2070 10-year storm event saying this is what you should design for. And so that's why we chose that event. And then it's just an increase in runoff, in rainfall. So for example, and I apologize, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head. I'm wondering if it's in the report, Joe. But let's just say it's like a five. I know. I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Sure.
But if it's like a 5-inch, 5 inches of rainfall is expected, then the 2070 storm might be 6 inches of rainfall or 7 inches of rainfall. And so we'll design our pipes for that information.
So I just have, this is just, I know this isn't the last time we're going to be seeing you.
Yes.
It's just sort of, I'm wondering if, given that we seem to have 100-year rainfall every year now, if 10-year planning for 10-year rainfall events for this type of climate stability future oriented project, if it would make sense to do a higher number.
We might actually run out of room in the depth of pipes in the ground if we think about that. That's a good question. So we do have a nice slope between Clinton all the way up to our location at Glenclove Place. But we have a lot of other pipes in the ground. We have water and sewer. And so we only have so much space. So we are actually upsizing them quite a bit. So some of the pipes that are there right now are between 12 and 24 inches. And we're upsizing them kind of starting at 18, going all the way to 36 inches. So we've definitely increased what we have there now. And the curb is actually going to do a lot of help here because it's going to focus and concentrate the water away from the slope and worrying about the slope instability that happens throughout this whole area.
Okay. And then the bioretention basins, are those just kind of like ditches along the side of the road?
No,
they're vegetated and.
Yes. So the idea with them, we're still finalizing our detail for them, but we're thinking that they are going to be concreted, almost like pools in the ground so that the water would drain into them from the street through curb inlets, and would be allowed to sink into this concrete pool. And at the bottom of it will be an outlet control structure. And so the water can drain in, the plants can be filtering. Oh, Diane, do you want to say something?
I just wanted to mention that they are going to be concrete pools, but there's also going to be soils and vegetation in there as well.
Yes.
So it won't be just like a huge bowl that's there. It'll be filled with soil. It'll be more like a planter.
Cherry Street.
Yeah, like Cherry Street. Thank you, Diane. Perfect. And so it will actually look like a curved planter. But underneath it'll be bioretention soil and soil media and plants that are going to be able to filter the water, slow it down. And then the outlet that's at the bottom, the way that this will work is that it has to overflow into it from the top and drain down and then back into the storm sewer system.
Should I keep going or let other people? I'm curious with the geogrid and the nails, what is it made out of? Is it metal? Is it biodegradable?
They're steel, so they are metal. The geogrid itself is a metal. And the reason for that is that we don't want it to biodegrade. We want it to stay there and hold stability of the plants that are coming through it.
Okay.
Over time.
And then what's the decision to only have it go halfway down this gulch right now?
So the geotechnical engineer took a look at the soil stability analysis, and that is where the problem soils are. We're getting to better soils in the bottom half of the slope.
Is there a reason to not I mean, is it a cost savings or is it about, does it disturb things too much to go all the way down if you don't need
So
to?
I think it's thinking more about the environmental impacts of it
Yeah.
and clear cutting all the way down to the bottom of the bank versus
Trying to leave some of that.
trying to leave some of that in the natural
Let's hold together.
Yeah.
And it also keeps you further away from the pond as well with any disturbance.
Uh-huh. And so if you cut it for the trees, it loses some of its ability to retain.
So it is tricky because then you'll have to also come back and recut it to make sure that the trees don't grow into it and become a problem for it later. So making sure that you get the pull right. And then, yes, I think you're gonna just have to make a lot more connections. So it's gonna be a significant cost as well.
But it doesn't degrade the stability of the geogrid.
I don't know that question for sure, and I will find out from GPI. It's a proprietary,
Their system.
yeah, it's their system.
I'm just curious how they're weighing that against the stability that the tree roots themselves are providing currently. I'm sure that engineers have some way to calculate that.
Right. Well, so the tree roots that are there are not enough. And so,
Obviously.
right. So you mean instead of
Well,
putting in there.
there's some equation here, right? The extent that the grid loses, either it costs more or the grid loses some of its functionality versus the functionality provided by the tree roots currently. Although it's not enough, it's doing something. So
Yeah.
I'm just curious about how they're calculating or I don't need to know the exact math.
Right.
but-
No, right. Okay. I'll follow up with that and I'll have an answer at our next commission meeting, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And then the last question is just the dam itself is very full of all kinds of logs, and I'm just wondering if that's part of this project or that's a whole separate thing.
Diane, do you have anything to say about that, I guess?
I think the DPW is aware of it. We're working with the other dam owner to work at doing some maintenance and getting some of those trees and everything out of there. Just general maintenance of the dam. So it wouldn't necessarily be part of this project in particular, but just general dam maintenance.
I will stop for now.
Also, August.
Yeah. So off of what Sarah was saying, so removing trees, are you leaving the stumps within?
Yes.
The slopes?
Yeah, so we
Okay.
would leave the stumps, and so we would know where those are and where we could plant new trees versus shrubs or herbaceous plants.
Okay. And how long will this project take? Are you doing it in sections? Or-
So yes, we will absolutely have to do that in sections. It's a great question. I do not have a great answer for you yet.
Are we
Okay,
talking
I'll let you
months
know.
or years or?
I think that we're talking probably a year.
I think it will be multiple years to do this in general, like the whole length.
Mhm.
So these step pools that you showed us, have you done that anywhere else in this area?
No. So we were originally thinking about doing something called regenerative step pools. And the idea is that it's slowing down the water and it's treating it as well with water quality.
Okay.
And that's what we were hoping to put here. It's a wonderful nature-based approach, especially slowing it down. And because we couldn't do as much infiltration along the slope as we would have liked along Emerald Place here. So as we started designing the storm sewers and seeing the sizes that we would actually need to be putting in here because of all the water from Emerald Place, but then also thinking about the future from the rest of the neighborhood, we are not able to do a regenerative step pool system, which is kind of thinking about treatment as well. This is going to be more about energy dissipation and slowing down the water. And so I feel like this picture, as great as it seems, I think we're going to be more into a system like this or here, where we're going to have a little bit more boulders and really trying to slow down the water. Because on the one to the north, we have a 24-inch pipe coming into it. And on the one to the south, we have 30-inch pipe coming into it. So those are pretty big. And they carry a lot of flow.
And within that area, is there any impacts to any wildlife habitats or any wildlife passages? Or can you create it to be wildlife?
So right
Friendly?
now, it's an existing gully that has been washed out, and it's pretty unsafe, actually. So I will definitely talk to our ecologists about, any sort of like making sure that we're keeping any sort of wildlife habitat intact.
That's a really good question, because there's tons of birds and frogs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of live, like Keeper Central.
Yeah.
And for the trees that you're saying to save certain specimens on the slope, do you know,
Yeah, and so
What
that's
your
in this
trees-
area right here.
do you know what the trees are? What species? Do you know the size of the trees?
So not yet. So we're working with the city, and we're going to go out and identify and figure out which ones we're thinking we would need to save. And we would also work with the conservation agent and invite the commission to come out at the same time when we do that.
And do you have your planting plan for the different
No,
species?
not yet.
What was the question?
Their planting
Oh,
plan?
yeah.
And
Mr. Weeks.
You guys are thorough. So I'm just curious about you're upgrading a lot of the piping. And what's the composition of these new pipes?
So I think that'll be a question for the city if they want concrete or if they want high density polypropylene.
Sure.
Diane, I guess, do you guys have a specific one that you'd prefer to see? I think we would probably want to put in HDPE just because so the polypropylene.
That's typically what we do is HDPE.
Okay. And then my last question is with these. Sorry,
Yeah.
the phrase of art has already escaped me, the step pools.
We'll call them
There's the
step pools.
potential for, I mean, with the storm events we've seen, potential for a lot of water to come in all of a sudden. And it
Right.
just makes me think of, well, there's going to be risk of, undercutting and scouring. And so how does the design of these pools kind of minimize the damage that might be done from, the inevitable 50 or worse storm?
Right, that's a great question. The rock size will definitely be sized based on scour countermeasure calculations, thinking of, and it's not going to be for the 10-year 2070 storm. It'll be for those larger storm events, and making sure that we have boulders in there that are going to be big enough. And I say boulders, not lightly, like it's a big deal to put in something like this. But there are existing outfalls there today that we would worry that if we cut them off, maybe there's neighborhood downspouts or something connected to those that we wouldn't want to totally lose them. So we know that there's an issue today. We're experiencing some pretty severe gullies. I'm pointing at pictures that this is not Easthampton, but we're experiencing some pretty significant gully washouts.
Yeah.
And so we would definitely want to do something here.
Thank you. Anything else from the moment?
I just,
Go ahead.
and would you be able to tell us what invasives are in the area?
I will not be able to, but our ecologist definitely could. So I can prepare that with like the invasive species plan would definitely include that.
It'd be easier to say what's not.
Yeah, what's not there?
Okay.
Yeah.
Diane, anything else?
Oh, I have one more.
Uh-oh.
comment. All right, I thought of it when she was talking. Since you're having these curbs, I know there's kind of all these off drainage points along the way, but is there any danger with creating this new curbing of the water kind of running down into Ferry Street and flooding Ferry Street at the bottom?
So I would say that Emerald Place, Glen Clove Place is a little bit of a low spot that we have today. And so the neighborhood generally slopes down kind of to Glen Cove Place, and it keeps going to Ferry Street, but there is kind of a depressional area right there. That's why we have that rain garden across the street from the outlet pipe. And so, you know, we're not going to be creating more of a problem because we are connecting everything with the 10-year storm sewers. However, you know, if that happened under existing conditions, that might also happen under proposed conditions.
Right, I just meant with the curbs. Right now, the
Right.
existing condition is it get more gullies, but if
Right.
it gets put on like a super highway,
Yeah.
it may create a new condition.
Right, I understand. We can address that in our report and make sure that we talk about that.
So,
No, it's okay.
I don't know which map it was on. You're removing. Is it part of a bridge?
Here, the wall.
Yes,
The
the
wall.
wall.
Cassie, do you happen to have the pictures from our site visit? I
Yeah,
think
I
it would
do.
be
That's
helpful
probably the
to
best.
show a picture of the Ferry Street. So it's kind of like a little overlook right now.
So bear with me while I cycle through. I mean, it goes fast,
Sure,
so we can get to it, but we will come back to any pictures if anyone wants to.
Yeah, this
We
is
kind of,
where the
it's kind of starting at the
trail
end. I think I took it all at the end,
and
actually.
it's kind of grading.
Yeah, you started at the Clinton end.
Yep, hold on, folks, I'll get there in just a second. Here we go. Okay, so this is the side looking at Emerald Place from here. We're on Ferry Street right now. The area that's on the other side of the dam there is where the pocket park was gonna be, or the parklet as it was called. But I can keep cycling through.
Yeah.
This picture is helpful. I mean, yeah, this is just, there were turtles on that thing, so I took a picture. But you can see the wall. Oh, oops, I touched the screen. It's a touch screen. I didn't know that. Okay, this is the existing wall on the other side. Kind of interesting to see the note, and then sounds like this part of the wall is the problem area, the closer one.
Yes, so maybe once we get to the
Yeah.
other side of the street, that would be good.
Keep going.
Like, are you gonna do anything with that wall?
No, so that wall is structurally in good shape, and so trying to retain anything that's there.
Did that just fall?
No. So this is looking back at the existing shared use path. It's going to turn around. This is the existing crossing. She was describing earlier. This is the space. We're on the part of the wall. I think this is the part that was redone recently for the Cherry Street project, but then you'll see the comparison. So it's crossing the streets. Okay, we're in the area where the parklet will be. So we've crossed the pond here. Now you can kind of see. I'm going to see if
You can zoom
have
in.
I will. I think I got one that's better to zoom in from. Hold on. This is just slow showing. Okay, I'm going to zoom in on this guy here.
So you can see the lighter colored rocks along the left-hand side of the
Sure.
picture. So that's what's been reset and replaced. And so doing the same kind of work on this area right here. And then the bridge will be high and dry. So we designed it so that it would be fully over the dam. There's a floodplain associated with this pond, so fully over the floodplain. We modeled it to make sure that we modeled it, but also we designed it so we would be fully out of the floodplain. And the abutments are actually going to be part of the wall and into the grassy area behind it. So the new bridge.
Go ahead.
So are you gonna be removing the wall from over the top?
So we will have to do temporary impacts and put in, we're thinking that we would do large silt sack bags to use as like a cofferdam so that the contractor can work in the
Okay.
dry as they reset these.
Sure.
And then also put in the bridge abutment. And then take out the silt, the least impacts is what we're thinking for that. And I started talking and I forgot your question.
Oh, so are you using large equipment on the grassy area?
Yeah, it'll be on the grassy area and we will not be in the pond working out.
So is there, to remove that, do you need to put something in the water to protect?
Yes,
And
so
then
that will
follow
be, not for the future. The temporary impact would be that we would put silt sacks down. So those are the large, like 3 foot by 3 foot, bags with sand, inside of them. A contractor can put them down with a the overreaching arm, and then they pump out the water. behind
Okay.
it.
So kind of in front of this area, the space below, they would make a little dam and then pump the water out and then do the work from above, it sounds like. So you wouldn't have people down there doing the work. It
They
would
can
be
reach out.
I was thinking of the netting.
Yeah.
Remember, we were looking at other dams or
Oh, sure.
bridges where they were,
Yes.
I didn't know how that would
Yeah.
work.
No, this one, they're gonna create a space for themselves. And then, that would probably need to be monitored during construction to make sure that like, they did a similar thing for Cherry Street. In fact, they also built a similar little mini dam and pumped all the water out of that space when they redid the outfall, if that makes sense.
And so the high and dry, is it gonna be like an elevated bridge that like a pedestrian or bike would have to go up and over?
Yes, but it'll be ADA accessible. It'll be at a correct slope that is safe, and it will match the same kind of fencing, so it'll look as if it's just part of that same multi-use path, just an extension. And that's the goal of this project, is to blend it into the environment that it is today. We're also talking with the Office of Dam Safety, because this is a dam, and we had a pre-application meeting with them. It went very well. They want to make sure that anything that we do here doesn't impede the ability for any work on the dam, which we will do. So making sure that we address everything.
Diane, anything you want to add?
On the project as a whole, or on this specific?
Any comments before we go over to the public?
Really, I just want to kind of reiterate like the idea that we don't want to take out trees. I don't know how many of you have been out to Emerald Place, but especially closer to Ferry Street, it gets very steep in there, and the sidewalk is slumping. So we have to we looked as best we could for a solution that we could retain as many trees as possible but stabilize that slope, and it's something that needs to get done. So
And if we can look at those pictures, if the commission wants to, before we go to public comment, just to see the sidewalk slumping, if you'd like, or any other part of the project.
That's
Yeah.
quick.
Okay.
It's a lot of trees.
Okay. It would be, yeah. So now we're looking back. This is the part of the area that would be cleared. So we're looking forward here. And we're working our way away from Ferry Street, up that way. So.
It's serious.
And then I just looked back. So this is kind of looking back. Sometimes I might flip back and forth, but looking down the slope. Keep going. Looking back. Forward.
and that's part of, again, why Laura was talking about the fact that if we can kind of limit it to the upper half as much as we can, we want to retain as many of those trees at the bottom as well as that we can, to keep the foliage as much as we can.
Sure.
Right, so in this picture here, you can see the sidewalk where
Yes.
DPW has come and tried to fix it. And it's happened again and again. And I think right now the asphalt that you see on the left is probably only 1 foot wide. And then you can see like
Let me see if there's maybe a picture that's closer. There we go. You can start to see it's washing away. Looking back. Little detail with them there, just looking down from that gravelly area towards the pond. This is past it, that one failure point though. Down.
Preserve the tree, keep them holding the soil.
Like I said, if you can just wait, 'cause I want to give you a chance to say it in full so we can capture it correctly. So I can carry on. The highlights really from here, in my opinion, would be the outfalls. I wasn't able to climb down and get pictures of them like looking up, except for one of them I was kind of able to, the really bad one. That was, maybe I was able to. But if it's okay with you guys, I'll just go kind of fast. These are available. There's one of them.
Right there. That's the worst one right there, that outfall.
This I was not able to climb down and look back up.
Can you zoom in?
Yes, hold on, let me go back.
So should we be concerned that that is a shaded area? Is it going to be continue to have as much shade as it is?
In my opinion, it would be important that we make sure whatever's planted there would be tolerant. If it's not going to be proposed to have trees there anymore, what's planting there should be something that would be successful in a non-shady environment. In terms of slope stability and how shade would factor in, it doesn't seem like those two would be related. I understand the potential implications for habitat, but that is something for the commission to consider and make a decision on. It sounds like they're going to come back with more information about the habitat stuff, so.
And I think, Laura, that's the pipe that would be upsized from 24 to 36, right? If that was the Glen Clove one.
Yeah, so that's kind of the main outfall today. That's right across the street from Glen Clove Place.
Okay.
Yeah, this is right above it, same area.
Basically.
Okay, now we're working our way back up the street. Keep going, we're still going down, just some trash. I just thought it was worth noting, and fallen tree debris. At any point where you kind of see down, I tried to get a picture of that. Looking back. Okay, we're on the move again. Yeah. Okay, now we're at the next street area. Crosswalk. Can you develop anybody? This is where the sidewalk ends. And this is from the location where it will become a one-way from this point, as I understand it. And then we have the large trees up ahead that they were going to be under around.
Right.
An example of how it's being used for parking currently. Looking back, looking at the pond. Okay, these large trees. See my cursor. This one and this one are the ones they're kind of meander around.
So those are these large black spots.
Okay.
So making sure that everything that we do, and thinking about constructability, like it's one thing to put a line, a plan, making sure that any sort of construction does not actually impact, that we actually do save that tree that we say we're going to.
We're getting closer to them.
Yeah, we're getting close to the first stuffed pooled area.
There are large trees. Yeah. This tree though would not be saved. That one would have to go, right? Is my understanding. This is across the street.
Yeah, this is across the street. It's on private property. And
in situ, you can see it here.
That's all.
Wait, it's on private property. Okay, so this is one of the.
so this is the sound there a little.
You can see that's the pipe, I think, part of it at least showing. There's like riprap and things down there.
Yeah, so you can see it's significantly lower. That's why I'm showing this green line coming in pretty far. It's not right at the street. We want to try to drop it down and, you know, meet it where its outlet is, and then have these step pools down.
Oh my God, is that a pipe, that little tiny?
Yes.
Yes.
Little guy right here.
Yeah.
You can see my cursor and it's black.
Yeah,
That's
so under proposed conditions, right, that's a 12-inch. So under proposed conditions, we'll put a 24-inch there. And then we'll do some sort of vegetated geolifts up above it. And then below it, we'll do the rock pools, the step pools.
Now we're just, I've kind of, the pipe is to the left here and I'm kind of panning down towards the pond. That's where it comes out.
Okay.
But it's sideways. A knotweed patch that seems significant in that same area. Okay, carrying on, this is another parking location. More trash dumped in the area, unfortunately. Parking space again. Panning around this parking space. Looking back at it. Carry forward, again, the large trees. Another potential parking space. So I understand it. Somebody's boat. Parking space.
We're ready for the 27 here.
We're getting closer to the place where we had the sinkhole issues.
Yes, yep, we're almost there. Just looking down, again, more trash, just noting. A little more trash, okay.
Here we are.
Right here.
Emergency certification for this project earlier. I think within the year, I can't remember when exactly it was, but, you know, the issues persist there. We looked at it. Now the water is kind of being directed a little farther down the street. So it will be a problem again.
So this is where they made the fix, and then we witnessed and we talked to actually a resident there, that they just see the water just passing it up and moving to the next spot.
And I think that's part of what we're trying to do on this end of the street is kind of direct it to where we actually plan for the energy to go. Because anytime water gets redirected in this section, it creates another erosion issue. So if we direct it with the curbing to where we plan to have the drainage go, as Laura was saying, we're going to be trying to dissipate some of that energy so it's not creating that erosion.
I'm just making it over here in minutes. Okay, yeah. So this is kind of a better picture of where it seems like that new erosion is potentially happening. Maybe you can see my cursor right here. And then the fix is kind of behind me in this image. And now you can see it's starting to go again, unfortunately. So it's certainly not a permanent fix that was done there, though it was sorely needed. And it was
I think it was about 12 feet deep before, so.
it's a huge difference. And let's see, again, this is me just climbing down now, looking at that hole that we know is there and the gully that we know is there. Just the extent of it going down towards the pond there. I don't think I climbed all the way down. Yeah, looking back up. And then this is the end. At this end point is where then the cut trail would be. Looking back from the end. Could be a lot. Here's the last picture. That's it. So, if anyone wants me to go back at all, I'm happy to do so. Otherwise, that's. Are you thinking you want to? Okay.
I think we're good as far as the commission. We're going to open up to the public.
Yes. So we just want to do this in an organized way. So I really appreciate everybody being here. So we have folks who are online, we have folks in person. Do you want to do online first or in person first?
Let's do in person first.
Okay. So, who wants to go? You can raise your hand. Just ask that you state your name for the record before you go. So you can go ahead.
My name is Robert Mantler. One of my main concerns with this is that path that you're talking about going all the way over.
This one, the one to Everett.
Yes. That my property is the one right along that. And there used to be a public path there. When I first moved there, there was one that people just used. But now with my next door neighbor and I, there's no way to get to it. There's no public property that makes it easable to get to that. Now, along my fence, which goes down towards Everett, there is a solid path about this wide that, like, it hasn't been used in years, but it was there, and that would not be hard to do. But I'm concerned about how they're going to get to it.
Okay, so I think that actually might be a question for you, Diane. Thinking about the access from south of Emerald Place in Clinton down to Everett.
I mean, I think our thought is we're gonna do the best we can to get a path through there. And we'd put any what do you call it? Privacy, fencing, hedging that we would need to between that property and wherever the path went through, but part of it's going to be grade dependent, and we're also working with the property owner on the pond side. So if it needed to go that way, we'd look into that option as well.
Okay, you just go around, staying within his property, or between. There's no clearance there.
Right.
You don't understand what I mean. I'm sorry, I haven't been to any of the other meetings.
No, it's fine.
But, you know, I've lived there, I've owned property there for 50 years. So, in that particular house for 40. And I've seen it the park issue that you brought up, was that on the Everett Street end or the Ferry Street end?
The park issue?
Oh,
Oh,
the parklet
that's on the north.
that was on the Ferry Street corner.
Okay. Because people might not know that, but there was a park right there, on Everett, at the corner there.
Okay.
Built there, nobody ever used it.
Mhm.
And I found they had the DPW take the stairs away before somebody fell down.
Yeah, no, so it'll be flush with the ground, it'll be with the sidewalk and then into the multi-use path. And I think it's going to be, we would really like to put some signage there, talk about the project, talk about the neighborhood, talk about climate resiliency. It's gonna, and we're hoping that it can be really like a stopping point for people to think and reflect on the pond.
And I am very concerned about those 3 huge trees
The,
on Emerald Upland.
All the trees for the meandering sidewalk.
Yeah,
Yes.
but there's 3 very huge trees there.
very large trees, yes.
All right, and those are the 3 trees I'm worried about. Cause you can't replace those.
Right, and we agree, like, absolutely. That is definitely the intent of this project, is to make sure that we preserve as many as we possibly can.
It's still true because you want to preserve just the environment of these people.
Yeah. Well, and
Mr. Mettler, can I just ask, when you said that there used to be a path there when you first moved there?
Yeah.
Did that path go on your private property? Or was
Oh, I don't know exactly. It was on the far side of my fence. Okay, and it just bordered the fence. And actually, I think all the people who ever used it are long gone. Have you?
I mean, was it like a right of way through private property or was it on public land?
I'm not sure of that, very honestly. I'm not sure which way the fence is.
Yeah.
All right, it's between there and going down the hill.
That's the one about tree house, I call it the milky, the milky. The one between the houses.
No, not that one.
I like to pretend I'm an Aspen still.
is there anything else?
No, like I said, this was where I raised my kids and everything. I love the neighborhood. People have always been very nice. My first thing about hearing about the one-way streets on World this way, and one of the things that used to happen is when they plowed the streets, which are in our street, the person who did it always plowed everything to one side.
Right.
So you had the other side could be used for parking, right? And whoever did, I noticed this year that it's not done that way on both sides, which really narrows everything down.
Mhm. Yeah, we are definitely, snow plowing is definitely in discussions with DPW as part of this project, thinking through everything of like, how is this really gonna work? We want to do it right. We want to make sure that we get this right for the neighborhood, and for the city. So that is definitely part of the discussion.
And like I said, it was just somebody, that plowed to one side and the other one.
And for the commission's part, they often will require a snow storage plan to be submitted with the project, especially in this instance, if they're planning, are they planning to put it on the side near the pond or the other side, or is there a better space? How will that impact the stormwater management systems, things like that? So this meeting will most certainly be continued, and that might be something that they discuss at a future meeting.
And one other question, now, the one ways to, what happens above Parsons, or from Parsons Street down, those part of the city, are those gonna be one way also?
Some of them will be, some of the streets will be one way, some of them will remain, like Lincoln Avenue will remain as a two-way
I
street.
have one on Exeter Street too.
Okay. And I don't have that plan with me
No, that's
today
fine, just
to
a
talk
question.
to, but yes, it will
Yeah.
be.
At this point, the only ones that we went in front of city council to change are, as Cassie was mentioning, it's Lincoln, Emerald Place from Lincoln all the way to the end. That other section of Emerald Place, I think it's Emerald Lane on these plans, and Clinton. We'll look, as we go through the new city neighborhood, we'll look to see if it makes sense to make anything else one way. But I can pretty much guarantee Lincoln will not be one way. Because I think that's the biggest street in this whole neighborhood.
Okay.
It will not be one way, Lincoln.
Yeah, that's the widest road in the new city neighborhood. Well, in the section between Parsons and Ferry and Everett.
Good.
Let's my comment on that same subject. So one
Well, let me
way.
just make sure it's done. Are you done?
Right.
Okay, all right, can you just,
Anyway,
thank you.
No.
Can you state your name for the record?
Eloise Goddard. Yeah, it's just Emerald. So is so narrow. So I love the planner idea, but to comment on water, I feel like because there's water there, you know, the idea of stopping the water is because we've had so much like England, and wouldn't we want to direct it? And I like the dam idea. You know, base of ferry. I actually was got an accident because the shrub, there was so much shrubbery I couldn't see turning, and I just had to learn that. But the trees, yeah, I need to look at, and I looked at like hands down. I studied that in college. But I do like one time I came back from college bringing my son, and you can hear the crack. You know, there's branches that need to be checked to keep the trees, but you know, the branches. One neighbor just moved because of the trees. There hasn't been enough attention as far as safety for the people too, you know, and it needs to be a regular thing because of the storms, because I've been doing it. I've been going to the DPI, you know, and, you know, I should be in that, whatever, but that is a very narrow road. So whatever, you know, safety for people, and obviously, you know, yes, the birds and all that, definitely. But that's a particularly narrow road for us who live there as far as making it one way. I think a lot of people that are irresponsible driving on that street are people that don't live there. My opinion. I'm always putting my hand out for them to slow down. They think it's a highway.
Okay, for long?
Probably not.
Okay, but yeah, if you think more, you can get back in line. Yeah, you can just say your name.
Roder, 72 Olive Street. I'm not even here for this new city stuff, and I'm looking at the time, and I was wondering about the agenda, because I'd like to get to Olive Street.
Yeah,
But I
it's,
just wanted to, when
it's the commission's discretion, how long they want to take public comment. It's up to you guys.
originally said 5-minute limit.
5 minutes per person.
Per person, though.
Yeah, so that's the commission's decision, how many comments they want to take. But though, for everyone's information, it will likely be continued, won't be the only opportunity tonight
Right, there'll be
to
other
make comments. So
to talk about this, but
Who can also make
See,
comments
you said
online?
this is the only time we can.
no, you can, any meeting, we're going to continue the meeting. We'll let you know when the commission feels like we're done. We'll say when it's going to be continued to. And then you get any time you can submit written comments to me, or you can call me. All my contact information is on this agenda, so folks can reach out to me that way. And I'm happy to just talk about it. But if you want to make a formal comment, I
No,
can
no,
say how.
I'm just, the next meeting,
I
there's going
wasn't
to be
done.
more meetings.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Sorry, Carol.
I'm done.
I just, this is very, very important, and I know it is, and I've been in that, taking a dog walk, so I know it's important. I'm not belittling that, but there are other things on the agenda, and so that's all.
anyone else with any questions?
Rachel Harden, Emerald Place. First of all, I appreciate the 5 minutes. We need the 3 minutes, and that's really moving. And I wasn't sure what was being covered exactly tonight, so I'm going to try and edit my remarks as I go, or what was actually covered tonight. One thing that I would like to express is it has been said that there's a community involvement. Many in the community do not feel that there has been community involvement. I know I went around just my few streets today to let people know about this meeting, and the majority of people had no idea this project was even happening. We have a large number of elderly in that area, and many of them are feeling completely disenfranchised from this process because so much of it is done online. And they don't know how to access it. They don't know how to ask questions. So respectfully, the community is not aware of what's going on. It is not having their voice well heard in this process. And even some that have been able to attend the public meetings, I know have felt like they're beating their heads against a wall because they'll bring up a subject and it's disregarded. It doesn't fit the agenda, so it's disregarded. Or we've been told, here's 2 choices, neither of which you want for your neighborhood, but you can pick which of the 2 you don't like less. So there is that concern among residents. For me personally, the narrow one-way streets, we're talking a 10-foot lane, which is like a fire truck is 10 feet. Your trash removal, sanitation trucks. I watch them come down the street and they already barely seem like they have enough room. So if it's a 10-foot lane and we have some people parked on the side, people are gonna be having damage to their vehicles, or services are not gonna be available, or we're gonna have to slow down of emergency services responses, which it's a very densely populated area. So balancing conservation with making sure that people can have access to things that they need, potentially even life-threatening things that they have concerns there. It's a lot of rentals, so there's a lot of delivery vehicles, moving vehicles, things like that, in and out. So with all these one-way narrow streets, residents are potentially looking at difficulty navigating their neighborhood. If somebody's moving in and there's a moving truck in that 10-foot lane, you suck. Like, you can't turn around and go the other way. It's one way. So it's like you're just completely. So that's a concern. The concern with the removal of on-street parking, there's between the removal of on-street parking and the narrowing down to say a 20-foot roadway for two-way, which is, so that's just traveling, that's it. Dartmouth, Oakdale, Exeter, Federal, Harrison, Lincoln, Clinton, all of these roads are going to be affected. And my concern is that if we remove that on-street parking, it's densely populated. People need those spaces. Landlords are going to need to provide parking, which means they're going to be taking out green spaces. They're going to be removing existing vegetation that is filtering that runoff, that is helping prevent, to some extent, erosion. So the parking piece of it, again, I understand it's a real balance, but there are a lot of people who live there. I was glad to hear about some of the stuff with the area down by Ferry, because that sidewalk is they just putting a new sidewalk that falls down the hill. So that's not great. I would strongly recommend keeping as many trees as possible. You mentioned wildlife. We're on the migration path for cormorants, which is actually quite rare this far in. When we moved in and saw them down there, I looked it up and the internet said cormorants don't come to this part of the country. So that's very important. We've got mergansers, we've got wood ducks, which are endangered, and they're in the migration. There's currently a beaver fell in that same area. The turtles, like there's a lot. It's very, very wildlife rich in there. And then down the other end where the gully is, that's just above a wetlands. So the vegetation and the wildlife changes in that area of the pond. And we have a lot of different bird life in there that is unique, even within the neighborhood. So just really, as we do this, making sure that we're very careful to maintain as much as possible, because we do, like the wood ducks that come through, we counted for. So if we disturb that, there would be zero coming through. So, and then the last piece that I had is, I know this project is based off Cherry Street. And I have heard reports from people who live on Cherry Street that there was actually some property damage, that heavy equipment that was brought in, some things that were done over there. There was actually some property damage that residents are attributing to what was done there. And this neighborhood it's an old neighborhood. The majority of the houses are fieldstone foundation or brick foundation. So I am curious if there has been any study done with all of this work that's being done, if we maybe destabilize the hillside more, if we bring in equipment and have a lot of vibration, and also the destabilization of foundations of houses in the neighborhood, since they are fieldstone and brick, many of them.
Sign up to the commission.
Were there other public meetings that were held to discuss parking and issues like that? Because what we're trying to deal with in the Conservation Commission is the Wetlands Protection Act. It's not up to us that you have parking or no parking, or a one-way street or a two-way street. We're trying to protect the environment and protect the wetlands protection. So that's why I want to get too far off the track, because there's nothing I can do to help you with your issues.
My concern with the parking was just if on-street is removed and landlords are putting in parking spots, then you're creating more issues with water, stormwater filtration,
Yes.
and that kind of.
And that is an issue that we would care about.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's all connected. It's very,
I appreciate that. And I think it is a subtle point of like, the Conservation Commission legally can only make sure the project is conforming to the performance standards of the Wetland Protection Act, which you clearly understand that. I appreciate that, but I don't know, does the project need to go to the planning board at all to go forward, or Diane, you may know? It does not.
It shouldn't have to, no.
So we're reviewing the project for compliance with the Wetland Protection Act and the city stormwater ordinance. So there may be implications like you just described. So we'll probably get into that in future meetings related to it to a degree. But yeah, parking and concerns about the safety related to one ways, we don't have the legal way to make requirements based off.
Okay, who do I talk to then about the parking?
Parking concerns generally.
No, I mean about changing this, no parking the streets. Because all those streets are it's a place to park.
Well, I think you should reach out to me, and then I can probably direct you maybe to connect with Diane more directly or another way. But
Okay.
yeah, if you're willing, that might be a better way to do it, just because the
Okay.
commission might not be able to make
Okay, I'm
decisions.
just,
based off
that just sparked something.
Yeah, right. And we're
negative.
not removing all the parking on the street. So we are preserving parking spots along the street. And that's actually why we've got this 10-foot lane. And then we have areas such as this one where we're including parking as we go.
But it's like, right, I'm a landlord there, so it's gonna be a problem. Massive.
Yeah, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else in the room that has a question on this Emerald Place project?
just to add to her, it is a very delicate area. Those buildings are old, and so whatever happened at Cherry Street, thank you. And I agree, I'm on board with that. They have to take their time to do it correctly, because there's already issues, at their people, whatever. You know, and we're environment too. And I've been out there protecting the birds, whatever, but it is all connected, so.
Is there anyone online that has a comment that they'd like to make?
Yes, if you do, you can use the raise hand function down at the bottom of the screen to the left of the end call button, and I can give you those permissions to do that. If there's anybody who'd like to do that. Amen.
Okay.
But yeah, basically, if the commission would like to continue, that would be the next.
Well, I guess I'm gonna ask
Yeah, go ahead.
whether you want to continue to the next meeting, or do you need more time for?
No, we can continue the next meeting. Our plan is to get stormwater report over to Betsy
Okay.
within the next week. And that way you'll have time to review it. And is there anything that the commission would want else?
We hit a lot of
We
stuff.
talked
Yeah.
about,
So-
we talked about a site visit, so we can look at the trees.
We can do another site visit. So
Trees.
I have, took notes on based off the things that you guys asked for that you mentioned that you would get for future meetings. So my plan is to email you a list of what those things were, for the next meeting. And then, but yeah, if there's anything else additional you guys think that you want to add that wasn't covered yet, this would be the time.
I have to add one more thing about the trees, because often we hear things crashing. So whoever's in charge of, I don't know, the tree person left and like all parts next, they said there's no new tree person, but there is, right?
There's not a tree warden. The DPW director is acting as the tree warden currently.
And
His name is Greg Nettleman.
okay, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, because, it's a concern. We're just as important as the birds and that, and there are things hanging over, and like I said, the first person, I love trees, because that's one reason we bought near the trees, but, I never lived in it. People don't, throw stuff and when they're dropping by. So that's it. Anyway. So, yeah.
I'm curious, given the public comments, if there's any, if there is any plan to have more in-person community engagement or sort of deaths and the foundation issues and that kind of thing that
Yeah,
may or may not be jurisdictional for us, but it might become so. Yeah.
Great.
How will their comments be addressed?
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed to hear that you felt like you weren't included, because we definitely did a pretty big campaign out into the community, and that and we wanted to hear, we definitely want to hear from as many neighbors as we possibly can. And held events at the site and in community centers. As far as future community engagement during the design process. Diane, I think, do we have any others planned for the, I don't think so for this year.
We don't have any others planned for this year. We had one in February. That was at Eastworks, just being, we would have loved to have done it in the neighborhood, but being the middle of winter, we couldn't safely do it on site. But at the beginning of the project, at the beginning of the design, we did have the one, which I think a lot of people attended at the corner of Glen Cove, I can never say that one. And in Emerald Place. That was at the beginning, but this February we did have one at Eastworks.
And when's the next one?
I don't know at this point. We may have one in the fall, but nothing has been planned at this point. We're mostly just trying to get through the 90% design at the end of June at this point.
Proper consent treat people. Just safety here. Their life and ours.
Okay. Motion to continue.
May 20th.
May 20th.
Okay. Quick question, just, no, I mean, you've mentioned a couple times that you were sort of at the 50% design stage.
50 to 70 right
And
now, yep.
you wanted to get to 90.
Yes.
So I was just wondering, what's the time horizon to get from
50 to 90.
Yeah, where
So we're moving very fast. And so by June 30th, that's when the municipal vulnerability preparedness, the MVP grant, is done. And so the 90% design plans will be submitted at that point.
Okay, so for our purposes, when is it appropriate for us to make decisions? Is it on the 50% design or the 90% design, or?
That's what I was asking. If you want to be continued to the next meeting, you think you'll have more data that we can look at the next meeting, so we should
Yes.
just continue.
So when I say 90% design, so typically when we come to conservation commissions, it's usually at the 50 to 75% design.
Okay.
And the 90% design is like, we're almost ready for construction and we're thinking about the constructability of the pieces.
And do you anticipate that the design will change a lot between now and June?
No. So what, the actual roadway design and thinking about like the engineering pieces, but that the impacts to the wetlands and the stormwater, those will be set.
Okay.
And so what's typical for the projects that we see to be at this stage, I can say for other projects that has typically been the case. What they're proposing to do is get permitted for the maximum possible amount of impacts. And then from there, they're going to work to walk it back, like with the nail slope. They're going to try to get permitted for the whole slope, but they're going to try to do it just to 12 feet. So that those pieces, it should be locked in through our process. It's not atypical to do it that way.
And just to say too, like that 90% design isn't going to make the difference on that one. So I think that's more in the field, the contractors there and find something that might not have been found earlier.
Thank you.
All right, I have a motion that continues this hearing to May 20th at 6 p.m. Is there a second?
Second.
Can I get a roll call vote? Commissioner August,
Aye.
Commissioner Carr,
Aye.
and Commissioner Weeks. Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you. Yeah, so for those of you who are here for this item, if you have other questions, please always feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to talk about it. But then, if you want to submit written comments, all three of you that I read into the record at the next meeting for you. And then, of course, you can attend the meeting and make more comments yourself if you'd like. So thank you for coming. I'm grateful to you. Yeah.
Yes,
Thank you.
Good night. Thanks.
So can I ask you that question, Diana?
What was that?
About the runoff?
If it's about that item, we've closed the hearing, so it won't be captured. We want to make sure folks who were interested can hear everything. So we got to wait to the next meeting. I'm sorry, but you can reach out to me too, and I can read a written comment for it if you want next time, if you can't go. So I know, Carol, you said you're here for the Oliver Street item, which
I have to be interested in all your stuff on the
Okay,
agenda.
okay,
So
all right, cool.
that's fine with that.
I would request, if the commission can to take item, my God, where is it?
Is it K?
Item Q out of agenda order, because we do have a gentleman here for that item. If we can take that one out of order.
All right, can I get a motion to take item Q, or what is it, item Q out of order? Yes.
Okay, I'll move that we take item Q next.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, Commissioner August,
Aye.
Commissioner Carr.
Aye.
And Commissioner Weeks. Aye. Motion carries.
Hi, Greg. You want to come up or sit wherever you want, but, see here, let me get myself.
Just want to make sure everyone has.
Yes, so I'm gonna pull it up on the screen. So
Okay.
here's the file. The most relevant pieces right at the top there. But let me pull it up, put it on screen for you because you have that nice list. So bear with me here. Another spot. Hold on. Here we go. All right, great. If you're ready, you can go ahead and describe the these you're looking to possibly change with the existing permit that you have.
Yes. I don't have to think it is. So this is regarding 65 Brookfield Street. You're familiar with the house there. And we have a restoration area for planting that we think will kind of and I consulted with GCA Geo Environmental or and New England Wetland Plan for a planting list and plan because all the species aren't available. And some of them apparently weren't appropriate because the planting restoration areas in the bottom of the lot and the was orange. It looks red now, but this zone, yeah, that zone there, it's 1,250 square feet. It's upland, so there's not really much embankment there, and so I want to get the plants in as soon as possible because it's all soil now. So we've removed the invasives. Oh, and Patrick Lord at GCA also sent a letter regarding this.
If I can go back for a second.
Yeah.
So for this project, because it's in riverfront area, one of the requirements for mitigation was to do this invasive removal space. As a pre-construction requirement, they had to submit a plan and how you're gonna do it. You got that, met the requirement, but that company wasn't able to be responsive. You're no longer working with them. So the chain, now he's gonna present a number of changes. This first one that he's presenting is to change that plan for the invasive species management. They've already started the process by removing the invasives. Now the question is, can we change the planting list? Can we change to working with GCA to make it? And they've made an assessment that some of the vegetation that was originally proposed isn't available. Some of the vegetation might not be appropriate in their assessment. So I will pull up the letter from GCA. If y'all hold on just a second. This. There we go. And here's it's very tiny, but here's the new planting. It's more potentially reasonable in the packet I provided there, but I will zoom in, which is like tiny. There's the list and then there's a plan.
So where it says unavailable, are those the ones that you're not gonna have any?
Right, and the
new ones are in green.
The new ones, yeah, the fifth column in is quantity new.
Yeah.
So that's what they recommend that we put in based on the plan. And there's a double asterisk on a few items and those denote substitution. And it's roughly, it's close to 80 plants. I think it's 79 in total. And it's fairly level. And I just don't want the soil just to sit there.
Sure.
Yeah. So that was that was the first item for your consideration.
So I guess maybe this would be a point. There's multiple changes that he's
Right.
requested. Do you want to go one by one and make a decision each one, or do you
Yeah,
want
let's
to
do
hear
that,
them
because
all?
otherwise we're gonna be bouncing all over, so.
Okay.
These all look like it. And it's not, it's right next to another driveway, right? Is it a wetland area? That little,
There
Red
isn't,
section.
there's an easement that's on the property that's below that.
Yeah.
Where all the symbols are, that's fairly level with the rest of the lot. But then below that, where you see the 123, that's where the embankment starts down to the wetland, the intermittent stream there. On the other side of the intermittent stream is a driveway, or I'm not sure if it's a city road or not.
I guess I'm just asking, do the species need to be wetland species?
They don't. It is part of the upland, and then it drops off pretty quickly after. But the jurisdictional spaces is that even though it's not a wet space, it is within the 200-foot riverfront area, and this is mitigating the loss of 200-foot riverfront area and another space on the property. So by allowing this to be removed of invasive and revegetate with natives, the focus is on natives, not wetland species in this instance.
And the way Patrick explained it to me was it's as much because it's upland for wildlife restoration as anything. And he did point out, like when I gave him the original list, he pointed out that like elderberry, he said was a true wetland plant and it wouldn't be appropriate.
Okay.
Up in that level. So he had his scientists go over it and bless it. So that's what I'm going with.
All right, what's wild raisin?
It's by Burnham Newton.
Okay.
It is. It's, yeah, what, the first section are shrubs. I know that. And I know it has it's part to full sun and it comes up to 12 feet tall. Second section is fern. And the last section is tree. And the very last item is a wildflower mix.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Species.
Okay, so I guess for this item, the question is, whenever there's a change, the commission can make one of three decisions. One, it's a minor change, you can issue approval right now. I'll send out a memo detailing it. You're good. So it's in the records, so don't be confusion at the end when they come close it out. Two, you could decide that this is a big enough change that you need to pursue an amended order. That would require them to come back to the next meeting and reopen the hearing. The third option would be, and just as I'm going to say them because it's true for all these changes. The third option would be to find that it is increases impacts to jurisdictional areas, and thus, according to DEP policy, you should require that a new order of conditions be issued, restarting the entire permit process before that change can be implemented. That would be the most harsh change. And again, DEP doesn't really. Their policy is that unless you really only need to do that if you're increasing impacts to wetlands.
This looks like a minor change to me for just.
Well, so far, I know there's a bunch of things.
That's why we'll do it pieces in case there's something that's bigger, but.
This doesn't seem like.
All right, so we'll go with minor change on
They're
this.
always on top.
Okay, so yeah, I'll just note that. Maybe we can do a motion at the very end.
Sure.
Okay.
Could I ask, do we have any conditions if this fails? If any of the plantings fail?
Yes, so in the existing order, one of the requirements is that they're gonna need to provide monitoring reports showing that at least 75, I think it's maybe 75% of the area is natives and has been successfully converted away from being these invasive. So the part of it is that original management plan to make sure that they're like checking on it and clearing out the new invasive.
And that's the other piece of it is I'd like GZA to do the monitoring and reporting.
Sure.
I think those are the reports due end of November each year.
Okay. It sounds like any more questions on that part?
Please.
Next one You want to take it away, Greg? Next change?
I'll just read right off that there is a plan that corresponds with each of these. Number 2 is I'd like to angle the carport from its previous position. It's a 20 by 20 carport. It's not there now, but I'd like to change its position. And you can see the original was the pink square.
Okay.
And where I'd like to angle it to is the green square. So it doesn't change the impacts, but it does provide benefits. And this was actually an idea from a friend that said, well, if you point it southerly, that would be a fairly solar friendly place. So it has that potential, it would have that potential.
Is that going into the buffer zone?
It would be the same. So it's already entirely within the 100-foot buffer zone. So the same amount of impacts. That's this area out here. I don't know if you can see my cursor extending to the left is all the buffer zone. This line here is the 50-foot buffer zone, just for informational purposes.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
then
the stream is here. So the 50 is there and the 100 is
out
here.
this line below is the 200-foot riverfront area. I guess you can make that it's technically moving away from 200-foot riverfront area. It's not clear. The last jurisdictional space, and this complicated site, is the 100-year floodplain. It does not appear to increase that by shifting farther into it. It looks like it's right on the edge.
Sure.
Though, but like this.
No, that looks like it to be a minor.
Agreed. And it does also add, the other thing I found where the pink square is it's basically a one lane driveway going into that. And so one would pull into it, but to back out of it, you'd be backing out onto lawn. And this property really needs the ability for a car to turn around, because when you're coming onto Love Field, there's a street, well, it's Love Field actually, that's right across. So backing out of the driveway is dangerous.
Sure. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So that's number 2. Okay, number 3. Okay, this is
This driveway.
so this property was, most neighbors didn't even know there was a house there because it was severely overgrown. And now that it's open, we also found that, and I suspected this, where the blue dotted line is, where it says existing pavement, that, and just above the shed, it says edge of pavement visible 2023.
Sure.
That's what the surveyor plotted from what they could see when we put it in. So what's been since uncovered as asphalt close below the surface, and now this is all asphalt, as you would suspect. It goes up to the old garage bed.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and the same here. It went behind the house. So this yellow shaded area is pre-existing pavement that wasn't visible.
But still in the 100-foot buffer, and none of that changes. Okay.
We'll just do that.
Let me see. Remove the pre-existing driveway under the proposed carport. Okay, so yeah, under the green box, all this pavement I'd like to take out, and we originally were planning crushed stone with a border or piece stone, something to that effect. And what we'd like to replace is the dark blue line, which is what's existing, except for this portion.
The building's going to be.
And that ties into the next item, which is the concrete pad, this pink hashed rectangle.
Sure.
That's there now. There was a 1-car garage there that was 16 by 20. So it's 1.5 cars. And I was hoping to save the pad as maybe a patio area or a screen house area. But it's pretty far gone. And as I said, what we have on this site is this is all fairly flat above the 123. And then we have embankment going down to the intermittent stream around the perimeter. So the site follows the 123 elevation pretty closely, and you can see it passes into what was the old garage. So this elevation at the front of the driveway is slightly higher than that. And in the back, so the pad is level, but the ground starts to slope away around it. So it's roughly, and I have pictures that I can show. It's roughly 16 inches down at the back. You can see it right. Yeah.
So if you take that pad out, are you going to cause any erosion concerns there?
Well, we have erosion controls in place that are on the other side of it, all around the perimeter. And the major takedown was the garage itself and the contents that were in there. We also took out a fairly large shed and its foundation. If I had to do it over again, I would have taken this foundation out in the first place.
So you're going to remove that concrete, take it off site, and then replant that area and grade it out so there's not
Vegetation.
Vegetation won't be an erosion risk.
Yeah, but less there's a tiny corner of the carport that in order to get that angle. So Patsy, if we could go back to the map.
Yeah.
Super. So take out the entire pink hashed area. And what would be crushed stone would be inside the green square. And this overlap is just from trying to make it so that when the cars pull in, they can pull in here and back out here, or vice versa. If I pull it any forward, the cars will be backing onto the lawn.
Sure.
One thought was, well, maybe we put the carport over where the concrete pad was and make the concrete, but I think this is much better because it takes the concrete pad out, which is closest to the buffer zone, and it makes the carport accessible. And we had one thought of, and I was talking to Cassie about this, of asking to put the carport in this area. But then we get inside this is the 200-foot riverfront. And that it turns out that would not be good for solar potential. And I don't know that I'll do the solar myself, but the potential would be nice, because this is going to be an all electric house, so no fossil fuels.
And so just, for the commission's part, this would be, this area is all where they remove the concrete pad is already within the original limit of work. So there's not an expansion. Of the limit.
There's a silt fence here. Yeah.
And so what it would potentially result in is actually an increase in compensatory storage in the floodplain area. That's the area that it's in. It's already in the buffer zone, that, but it would remove fill from the inner 50-foot, 100-foot buffer zone. And then it would also remove fill from the floodplain. It'd be pretty minimal, frankly, but it's, it certainly isn't increasing it, which is what we would be concerned with. Definitely isn't triggering increased impacts, in my opinion.
Meaning that we don't have to revise.
Yeah,
It's a minor change.
I would agree with that as the question.
I think so too, but just for my clarification, if you're taking out most of the existing concrete pad, would you then replant that area with a mix that's comparable to the restoration area that you have on the other side?
I was thinking basically the plan for the whole area was lawn and this restoration area, and then we had arborvitae's here. So you know, I'm open. There was gonna be a concrete pad there, so I was gonna continue the lawn, but I'm open to ideas too.
I think as long as it's stable and on an erosion concern.
Yeah.
And then in the picture, you can see that 16-inch difference over the 20
Sure,
feet
sure.
isn't where the concerns are as far as steep
Right.
erosion.
So do we have any concerns about you can say gravel underneath that? Because it's.
It goes underneath the carport areas where there would be gravel, and I think that was
That
originally
was in the
proposed.
original. plan.
So it's more just the
That's its
shifting
position,
location
yeah.
now is the big change, because before they wanted gravel underneath the carport as well.
Okay.
So there shouldn't be any increase in paved area. But it does sound like there is they uncovered the rest of the original paved area, but that they do want to repave that.
Oh, you do?
Well, except for this, yeah.
Except for that. But
The
rest-
dark blue line is what we want to replace. And what's under,
Existing pavement there now? I thought it was all
I
dirt.
can show you the pictures. It's dirty, but it is pavement.
It was paved, they just couldn't see it.
So you can kind of see it is.
that is asphalt. I think I have a closer up. Yeah.
Oh, there's one that shows the corner here.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Which we had discussed that in a second. I don't know if it was talked about that. It's not super surprising to me, at least that was discovered.
Sure.
In the Wetlands Protection Act, for a single family home, there is an exemption for repaving existing
Right.
parking. It wouldn't, again, I don't think it would result in an increase in impacts. That's already the current state of it. But yeah, obviously it's for y'all to decide,
My
but
mom thought it was just dirt driveway too. It's like, no, it's, okay, so that's the garage pad.
well, before we move on, I don't know if the commission has we've done two right now. So we did the driveway, which was more uncovered, repaving that. And then the other piece is, shifting, what are we doing? Removing the concrete pad at the end of the driveway.
Yeah. So we're thinking that's a minor change.
For both.
Yes.
Cassie, can we go back to the
Oh, the plan.
plan? Okay, the original plan also, I was aware that when we opened this up, we left a buffer, a vegetative screen buffer here, but Lovefield Street turns into O'Neill Street here.
Yeah.
And Lovefield Street turns off, and there's actually a stop sign intersection directly across from the driveway. So I was pretty certain that there was gonna be headlights and privacy sorts of things, and that was the reason for the original arborvitae line to be proposed. To benefit the residents, I'd like to move the arborvitaes from that straight line off the corner to a curved line like this. And I also think aesthetically it's nicer because it kind of wraps with the way the driveway goes around the house. So that's item.
And that doesn't change any buffer zones or anything like that, so.
And it actually moves the
Moves it
majority
away.
of plantings outside of the jurisdictional area.
Outside. Yeah.
Arborvitae's, they're not, I mean, we weren't considering it as like a restoration piece or
Right.
anything like that. The rest, it sounds like would be lawn.
Yeah.
Where you had it before.
Yep.
New plantings are typically not a concern for the commission. It's vegetation removal that we're usually more concerned about. Neither of these things exist currently, so it'd be a new plant.
And Cassie, I know we had the species on that, but I can't recall it. It was giants maybe, or.
Giant arborvitae.
There's basically two, and yeah.
You're not changing.
No. Should I keep going, Kat?
I mean, do you want to make a decision on that one, yeah? Or-
We think it's a minor change.
Yeah.
I think it's minor,
We
yeah.
we don't have a concern about it.
Meeting for us again.
The 20th. Yeah,
Here.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
we're-
always this location unless it says otherwise on the agenda.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Sorry
No,
to
no, I'm fine, because I don't think we're gonna get to anything else.
You're involved. I wish the people that lived there for 100 years.
Have a nice night.
So whatever the next one is.
Yeah, the next one is, and this is, 10 by 18 patio area. There's a side door out of the kitchen, out of the house here.
And this was not in the original plans.
This was not in the original.
So you talked to us when we were out on the site that.
Yeah. So I laid that out, and along with that, it'll take some time, obviously, for the arborvitae's to grow in. So
Sure.
I also put in this is 16 feet long, a 6-foot fence.
You have to get a different permit than us for the fence.
For the fence, okay. And that's probably, oh, Cassie would.
Would that would be a paved patio, so it's impervious?
Brick pavers, yeah.
Pavers.
And I know and I'm not very familiar with all the terms and conditions, but I do think there is something to, and Cassie, you recommended that we have the surveyor put this in, that this is the 50-foot line from the wetland.
Okay.
And that there are some exemptions beyond 50 feet
Okay.
if it was already planned to be lawn.
So, I can pull up what the exact exemption is if you all want, but basically there's also language, for minor activities only for single family homes like this.
Okay.
Only if it's proposed in the outer 50 feet, 100-foot buffer zone or the outer 50 feet of the 100, the riverfront area. So say this project didn't have a permit, it was totally new, the house is already there, and he wanted to build this new deck. It would be exempt, he'd be allowed to do that. I would have issued the
That should
building
be
permit.
a non-issue.
Yeah.
And so the Conservation Commission doesn't, have a say on the fence or?
Well, I think you gotta get a permit for the fence separately, because it's
Okay.
gotta be the right height and the right distance from the road and those things, so we can't tell you to put the fence in and.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's the least of, that's the least, I kind of put these in order of.
The exemption, there's also an exemption for fences, I'm pretty
Okay.
sure, but this would certainly meet them. It just needs to not block wildlife passage, but it's so
No,
short
well,
that
yeah.
it shouldn't matter. But yeah, I'm not sure what else you would need for the fence. You might not. I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, it's so interior to the property that I would be surprised.
I would check just to.
Yeah.
Building
department.
Building
Permit,
department,
you
all
do
right.
need a fence permit.
Exactly.
I've had to remove a fence because I put it up
Oh.
1 inch.
Appreciate that. So yeah, it would be a building department, but we can talk about that after.
And not city planner.
I don't,
Building
I will
department.
check actually.
I would say building. department.
Yeah, that'd be where I'd go, but I can double check for you.
And there are permeable pavers you can.
Yeah, and I'm open to that.
Right, now, that's what that would be.
It just happens to be the spot where I think it's gonna be, but I don't think that doorway is gonna be used a tremendous amount. But if it is, I'm imagining in the summer, they may want to grill out.
Is the commission wanting to require permeable pavers or just express a preference or whatever?
I don't think
It's exempt right now.
it's exempt. I don't think we can really,
I guess we can't require it, I'm just, because it's exempt, but I would recommend it.
that's all.
There's also, because I've been kind of looking that up, is they also have where you set the gaps between the
Yeah.
pavers a little wider and the base underneath allows for, so I'm completely open to that sort of thing.
So I guess we're not requiring it, strongly encouraged.
So can I ask, so you're saying that the fence, even though it's short, what type of fence? Because Patsy brought up the small animal passage, so I'm just,
It's not really
Curious
blocking
about
anything,
that.
though. It's not like he's going
Yeah.
across the whole property where, it's.
How long you said it was 16 feet long?
This is 16 feet, yeah.
So in that instance, that the commission can require if they want to some kind of passage underneath, but it's so short that
it's just a piece.
it's just
Yeah,
a
just a
piece
privacy.
that I would think that it doesn't really matter,
Yeah,
like, but
I-
it's up to you guys, obviously.
No, I was just curious
Yeah.
because it's in that area. I didn't know. but if it's just a piece,
Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause everything else is wide open, so I think it's fine. Right.
And if we could scroll down just a wee bit, that's, yeah, well, no, to
Oh, sorry,
the,
sorry.
yeah, just top of the plan. And I just put in as a note that, when we had it surveyed, I'm not showing it, but there's a tree that we preserved
Sure.
right here. And that's where the shed was in the original plan. So we actually moved it a little bit away from the buffer zone in this direction, but I just wanted to put that in as a note. I think.
Is that the last one?
That is,
So the reason this was important is because when this is a number of changes, so it's like, let's just do them all in one go. And it sounds like most of them are minor. I'll be able to make a document that will show those changes. So when they come to close out the permit, potentially years later,
right.
it will make sense when you try to match up what was originally approved. It'll be in the record.
Yeah.
The commission was like, yeah.
But in aggregate, it all seems to be a minor change.
Right. So can we do a motion that, all the changes that we've done 1 through 7 are minor changes?
I will move that those changes 1 through 7 are collectively a minor change.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner August, Commissioner Carr,
Aye.
Commissioner Weeks. Aye. Motion carries.
Great. So I'll write it, I have to write up a memo and I'll send it to you.
Okay.
That would be the.
I did have, and I don't know if it's time to bring it up,
Sure.
but, the original on the planting mitigation plan, I think, and I probably should talk to you first about this, but I think they had a date that was incorrect. That was far out. I think they had it 4 years out instead of 3 years out. So I may need to
I've done that.
bring that into my.
In the revised plan that GZA gave you, does that address that or no?
They only address the plant selection and the.
Let's talk about it and then if we need to come back.
Have a good night. You're
And that's,
free.
oh, thank you.
Your patience, I will send that to you as soon as I can. I'll work on getting it done.
Thank you. Have a great night.
All right. So let's see, I guess unless anyone else is here for a repeal item, we can jump to that if the commission is amenable to. We can jump to
Yeah,
it.
you know what, because that was just, that's the only thing on your agenda on Oliver Street was the, Chacon.
Chickwin, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't have anything negative or anything, I don't have any input on that whatsoever. It's right down the road from me and I don't mind it. So I guess you weren't really addressing it, but I did have the other, I was curious on your number 7 on your agenda. I just want to hear about those things. You said you're going to do an update.
Yeah, so basically, if you want to request the commission to jump to that item, they can consider doing that, or we're gonna go back to the original order and work our way down. And
I
do all-
didn't know how long y'all stay in here.
as long as they're willing, yeah, we'll keep
I'm
going.
just so impressed. Yeah,
This is not our longest meeting. We have gone way longer than this, so, yeah.
Well, that doesn't mean that we
That doesn't mean that we
would like to have it tonight.
That's easy.
I like attending the meetings.
On your agenda thing was number 7 and, we're of particular interest, but I was very interested in all your things. So whatever you're gonna do it. And if I don't,
Well,
I love your openness. I love your order.
That's good to hear.
I think we could just jump through and just pick out anything that seems to be critical and.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff listed on the agenda, but I have a list of things that I actually just want to talk about that I just go through when we get there. So we want to go back to,
Let's go back to regular order and just
yeah.
go through your highlighted, items.
oh, hold on. Oh, Diane. Oh, Diana, you're still here. I'm so sorry. Actually, there is one that I'd like to take out of agenda order. Apologies.
So,
I made you not close anymore, Dan. Hold on. There was been one of the ongoing agenda items. It's item for Cherry Street. And City of Easthampton 99 Mountain Avenue. There's a request to extend an extension request for that project.
So can I get a motion to take, 8N?
Take 8N out of order.
Second,
Second.
Commissioner August, Commissioner Carr.
Aye.
And Commissioner Weeks. Aye. 8N.
Okay, so, yeah, this is for 99 Mount Tom Avenue, which is for the Cherry Street project that is currently underway. It's set to expire on, let's see, it's the 15th of June. I received a letter 30 days in advance of that expiration date to extend it. It sounds like for a period of 3 years, so it doesn't seem like you would need that based on where the project is at. But Diane, if you want to explain the current status of the project and why the extension is needed.
Basically we're pretty much done with construction. But really we just want to extend it so we can do that final review of the plants and making sure they're coming in correctly.
Okay. So how long do you want to extend it for?
I mean, I think we're planning on doing it in the fall. So, I mean, if you want to extend it a year, that would be great, but we should be done before that.
Okay. All right. All right. So can I get a motion that we extend the June 15th, 24 date for the, was it 99 Mount Tom Avenue?
Correct.
Yes.
Motion to do what he said.
Do what he said. Second. I'll second that. Commissioner August. Commissioner Carr. Commissioner Weeks. Motion carries.
I'll get that to you as soon as you can. Thanks for your patience.
Thanks. Good to see you.
And I'm wondering if, are there any other like decisions that need upon this?
Let me double
I have
check my
someone at
notes.
home that I need to relieve.
Oh, I see. Yes. So, yeah.
This is, if there's any super critical thing, then we'll just call it a night.
Yeah, if y'all, yeah, the only thing. Don't need to do that.
Like if
one.
it's just for
There is-
updating.
Yes, there's one more that I did want to get your input on, if you can. So this is for jumping to open space updates. And then B, 35 Main Street.
Yes.
They are working on trying to draft a conservation restriction for the commission to consider.
Yes.
They have an update for that because it kind of got paused for a second. If I can just read you this email regarding what they plan to put in there. Just a brief review of what we've discussed in the past. The commission would be one of the grantees of the conservation restriction. They have proposed that we share that responsibility with Mass Audubon. Mass Audubon would be proposed to be responsible for the monitoring and the enforcement. There's 3 elements to managing a CR: monitoring, enforcement for potential violations, and approval for projects that could happen there. They wanted to split those duties because my concern was capacity issues in terms of managing our conservation restrictions that we already have, things like that. So I recommend this approach. But if I can just read this letter to you, they'll help us. They wanted a little feedback because they're trying to move forward. This is the final decision. They don't need a vote, but I just wanted to make sure this is okay for them to carry on this way. Okay, this is from Mark Bonsley of Kestrel Land Trust, who would be a property owner. Hi, Cassie. I just wanted to provide an update on the CR review for 385 Main Street. We're nearing the final draft, which the state will need to complete its review and then approve for local votes and signatures. Although I'm not sure if we can actually meet our June 28th closing deadline for acquiring the conservation land, most seem to agree that we should keep our CR moving forward, guided by that original timeline. I'm attaching what we have so far. So they got me a draft.
Okay.
Attaching what we have so far. You'll see that as a grantee, the COMCOM has the right to enforce the CR. It is silent on monitoring responsibilities, as I think they could be spelled out either in the baseline report or in a separate agreement between the city and Mass Audubon. That was going to be a memorandum of understanding we were going to create with them separately. The one change that I made, which I am not certain about, is that I gave Mass Audubon the sole responsibility for responding to and deciding on notifications and approvals when they are required from the landowner by the CR. I can easily change that back to the original model CR language, which involves a multi-step notification and approval process involving both the primary and secondary grantees. Of course, the COMCOM would always hold the authority for any issues involving wetlands on the property, regardless of the CR language. What would be the best way to determine the COMCOM's preference on these questions about the overall rights and responsibilities? We'd be aiming to submit a draft to the state as soon as possible in May. We hope that we could get eventual COMCOM and City Council votes and signatures by June. So again, no signatures tonight. And then he added another email because I mentioned the memorandum. He said, in terms of the memorandum of understanding, well, I think the CR covers mostly responsibilities pretty well. The one remaining area is the annual monitoring. There just wasn't a natural place to address that in the CR. So I think either a memorandum of understanding or addressing it the reporting in the baseline report that Mass Audubon puts together would make sense. And I defer to what the city and Mass Audubon decides. He CC'd some other people in there from his team. Or from Mass Audubon, we don't need that worked out in time to sign the CR.
Okay.
Thanks for offering to present it. Clear up the remaining issues. Tonight, we should wait for approval of signatures for the final vote. So they're waiting for approval from the state before they would come for signatures, but they want to make sure we're comfortable with this language as proposed. So the big piece is they're putting, of those three elements, it would be Mass Audubon doing the approvals and notifications of projects happening on there that are within the realm of the CR. So pretty limited. So conservation restrictions, so they can only do certain things. You couldn't just like build a house. It has to meet the criteria of their CR. They're putting that all on Mass Audubon instead of a longer process that would involve the commission. For the monitoring, that was one of the other pieces of responsibilities. That's something that we can work that out with Mass Audubon later. So it can be both of us or focus on it being them. And then the last piece would be enforcement. They're putting that on the commission for enforcement, which seems like a logical change to me. I don't see an issue with this, but I wanted to make sure we had it on the record that the commission had considered this, and if you had any concerns, we could address them.
Concerns?
Well, I guess kind of a concern / question. I mean, some of the enforcement issues might not be relevant to the Conservation Commission. So like if somebody's hunting and hunting is not per the CR allowed, we can't really do an enforcement order around hunting because that's not in our purview. So.
And it's not affecting anything, really. It's not taking a change.
We would be able to, in terms of, it's kind of confusing, but basically the commission would be taking off its Wetlands Protection Act hat and putting on its landowner hat.
CR.
And being like, this is, as a landowner, we could pursue those things or help support Mass Audubon / Kestrel to pursue enforcement in that way.
Teeth to do that?
Only in the way that other landowners would, in terms of, following maybe a lawsuit, or depends on what the normal process would be for those things. Obviously, we always will have enforcement for wetlands violations. That would never change, but it would become more just as like the responsible party in the city if the city wanted to pursue enforcement, not related to wetlands violations, but for violations to this property. That's the piece. And so it was important. It seems like originally it was important for the city to retain that authority. They want the city to stay involved so that that also keeps the door open for them going for CPA funds. So the city needs to maintain that management somewhere. It seems like, according to them, they have more experience than I, that enforcement would be the logical place to do that, because making it be monitoring, that becomes a capacity issue, and notices and approvals, it would just be a longer process, but we could retain that if we want to. That's the piece that they want to know about, is retaining the approval piece, in my opinion. So it's a good question. It's confusing. We don't deal with it very often.
And then what was the annual monitor?
So when they create the CR, they're going to need to create a baseline report of the status of the property when it was created. That goes to the state. Then there's the annual monitoring that needs to happen. That's the capacity piece.
But is it just, I mean, again, depending on what the conditions that are spelled out in the CR are, there might be other kinds of monitoring that needed to happen along the way.
Are you saying that you would want the city to do that, or
No, I'm just saying, I guess what I'm saying is, I don't know how big of a job doing an annual monitoring is in terms of capacity, but I guess I was wondering if we could be involved with the annual monitoring, but not do the ongoing monitoring of the boundaries all the time. And like if somebody wanders onto or starts to build something along the way throughout the year, like that wouldn't be on us to monitor.
So basically what they're proposing, that they're proposing is that we will, outside of this draft that they're going to send to the state, we'll work with Mass Audubon to set up a memorandum of understanding to work out those details of how we would pursue the monitoring. So it would be kind of leaning towards, in my opinion, my recommendation would lean towards Mass Audubon doing the bulk of it. They have more expertise. And what's involved is monitoring for conditions on site for recreational purposes and health of the site, but also the barriers to see if there's, make sure it's not encroachment by abutters and get illicit activities as you described. So I'm not even familiar with what.
So we don't have to decide that tonight.
Agreed. Yes.
I thought he asked. I thought that was one of his questions.
Yep. No, I think he was making a note that that would be something that we could determine later with the memorandum. His main question is about the notifications for approved projects, things that they want to do there.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Can we just get the notifications, but not really be involved in the approval process? And then if we see a notification come through where we're like, wait a minute, that might be something that we really should be involved in, and we could raise our hand and say, we want to be involved in this.
Yeah, this is kind of a different situation. We've never quite partnered like this before. So.
I thought that's what we had said when we first talked about it.
Hopefully, and it was a while ago.
That we would just get the notifications for approvals. And mostly we would just leave it to Mass Audubon to decide. But if we saw something that was especially concerning or relevant.
So I think it's interesting. So is there a way for the commission to get notification when these things arise, but not be required to weigh in? Have that option to weigh in if we want to, but not if we decide not to get wait on us to do whatever.
Not both pieces, Echo Dale and 385, just 385.
Just 385, and this is only the conservation restriction associated with it, not the project, the potential housing.
Right.
Just so that's clear, because that might come up later.
Well, I walked that piece of property the other day. Have you done a site plan out there? Have any of you been out
We've
there?
not, we did a site visit originally for a different permit known as an ANRAD, just to do the delineation of the wetlands on the whole property.
Right.
So I have been there, but it's been some time.
Well, I walked through last week with my dog. I walked through to 6. I was curious. And I was shocked at how much wetland, the little flags that are marked where the wetlands are, of how much of it is. And plus we both had to wash, I had to wash my dog in the mud and everything else. So I was just surprised that the wetlands are so vast in that property, it's really, it's like.
So identified in the ANRAD, right? Because
so the purpose of that original permit was to kind of review just the wetlands and confirm where they are. We had a peer reviewer come and check their work. We hired someone at their expense to double check it who worked for us. And basically that's helpful for them so that when they come for a permit, if they come for a permit to do work, that's already set in stone. Right. We know that's where the wetlands
There's
are.
going to be a lot of disruption to the wetlands so how that project goes through is I don't understand what your role is now, I guess, to how to protect that.
Yeah, that would be.
But now those wetland boundaries are identified, so we don't have to go back out there and say, oh, where are they? What are they? They're done.
But that's an interesting question. Is it a conflict of interest for us to be monitoring the Wetland Protection Act activity on a piece of property where we are a CR holder?
Well, the CR would be in locations all outside of where the CR exists, outside of where the proposed project is.
Okay.
It is common for conservation commissions to hold CRs in this way for many properties, but this piece won't include where that work is happening.
Okay.
I don't find this to be an uncommon or kind of like conflicting setup, in my opinion, because the purpose of the CR is like the gold standard of protecting property.
Right.
As the commission, we can only protect the places where we have jurisdiction, but the CR is like even more than we normally be able to do. So it's actually quite rare and advantageous that we would be given this opportunity to have more authority than we normally would. Yeah, if that makes sense. So I don't find it to be a conflict, in my opinion.
Anything else critical from tonight?
Well, just so I'm sure for this piece, it sounds like you guys are okay with this setup.
Sure, yes.
Want to know if there's a way for us to retain that ability, if we want to weigh in. If there isn't, are you comfortable with this as it's proposed here?
Well, if there isn't, but I don't see why there wouldn't be.
I know. And we're just bumping up on my level of understanding. So I'm just trying to cover my bases.
That we've not run across before. So.
I think the Audubon should be involved.
That's the plan. They're very good.
Yeah, they need to be involved.
Okay. Cool.
Before I lose my, can I get a motion?
Double check, there's nothing else. I don't think there's anything else, but
Do we need to make a motion on that?
A
No,
motion
no.
to adjourn though, if you run off.
If you guys are
I
cool,
can stay here for
Yeah, if you
2 weeks.
leave, then we don't adjourn.
the only other thing is the minutes. If you want to, we can pass them down the line.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I print them all out.
I made the motion to approve. Sure, Deb already gave you the.
You wanna do
Yeah,
that?
that's check.
Okay, I found one typo.
I saw one typo too, but I'm not gonna point it out.
Right, okay.
You can send that, email them to me and we can
It
do
was
the
like,
changes.
it should have been the word it was then or something. like that.
It was a they instead of
Yeah, if you email me those
There
changes,
was an
we can
is
change stuff
instead
like
of
that.
an in.
I made a lot of changes for that, so I might already caught those.
Make a motion to accept the minutes with Deb's changes.
All right.
second.
All in favor, Commissioner August,
Aye.
Commissioner Carr,
Aye.
Commissioner Weeks,
I
motion carries.
And then I also.
motion to adjourn.
Commissioner August,
Aye.
Commissioner Carr,
Aye.
Commissioner Weeks.
Aye.
Motion carries.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.